My mother-in-law tried to ruin my marriage by stealing my phone, but her plan failed and her own daughter is suing her. She's absolutely insane. I, 34 female, and my hubby, 37 male, have been married for around 5 years. My mother-in-law was a headache to deal with long before we were engaged. She loathed me from the moment she met me. She has treated me horribly since the beginning, which is absolutely unnecessary. When my husband and I initially started dating, she would make so many comments about how we wouldn't last and how he'd ultimately become bored with me and go on. This continued after 3 years of being together. She refused to give up on the thought that we would soon break up. However, to her dismay, he proposed, and we became engaged. His father, sister, 35 female, and brother, 39 male, were all thrilled for us and have always been quite supportive. However, his mother was extremely salty and made no effort to hide it. She even expressed her disappointment in front of everyone, which was the most ludicrous thing imaginable. By then, I was used to it, so I didn't let it bother me. Thankfully, the rest of my husband's family is quite pleasant and has always made me feel welcome. My husband and his siblings are really close, and he adores them. My husband frequently stands up for them when their mother is too much to handle. My sister-in-law is married, and my mother-in-law also has a difficult relationship with her husband. While that is unfortunate, it is comforting to know that someone else understands what I am going through. My mother-in-law also made wedding planning extremely difficult. She was continually demanding that everything be done her way. She wanted to choose the venue, dress, cuisine, theme, and everything else, which made the situation extremely stressful. It reached to the point where I was considering canceling the wedding because it had become too much. But we made it through, and the wedding went off smoothly. My mother-in-law made a few disparaging remarks about my body, but my mother and sister-in-law yelled at her and escorted her out of the room. Aside from that minor hitch, our wedding went quite well. I hope that once my husband and I married, my mother-in-law would stop complaining about how we wouldn't last and we could start to get along. I was very, terribly wrong. She just couldn't get over the concept that one day my husband would wake up and realize I wasn't good enough for him, and we'd split. She would frequently make comments about how my husband should do better, that he should be with someone who could give him children. I'm infertile. She'd even try to suggest other women he could leave me for. For those who are concerned, my spouse defends me anytime she makes rude remarks. He shuts her down immediately, and if things get too nasty, we leave. He will not contact her until she has apologized to me. While her attitude does not change, my husband stands up for me. He has offered to cut off all communication with her if I wish, but I do not want to be the reason he no longer has a relationship with his mother. So I've always assured him it was okay and unnecessary. Besides, I was already used to her attitude, so it didn't bother me too much. We don't get to see my mother-in-law too much because of her conduct. We only go on exceptional occasions, like holidays or birthdays. I feel awful for my father-in-law, who is a wonderful guy, but we needed to set these boundaries because my mother-in-law is too much to bear. This applies to my sister-in-law and brother-in-law as well. They avoid seeing her as much as possible. However, when we do go, we are usually all together, and it is enjoyable to hang out with them. This past weekend, we all went over to celebrate my father-in-law's birthday. Everyone was present, which was wonderful, and we had a great time. My mother-in-law maintained her typical demeanor, but we did our best to ignore her and concentrate on the birthday man. We didn't want to give her any more attention than was required. We departed after the party, and everything appeared to be all right. Nothing noteworthy happened, or so we thought. Yesterday, I received a call from my brother-in-law, who informed us that my sister-in-law was planning to sue their mother. My husband and I were really perplexed, wondering why she would attempt to sue her own mother seemingly out of nowhere. He then revealed what happened on my father-in-law's birthday. My mother-in-law had stolen my sister-in-law's phone, believing it to be mine. She used it to message many random men for hookups, with the intention of showing my husband and convincing him that I was cheating on him, so he would leave me. However, my mother-in-law did not know she had taken the wrong phone. She had been impersonating my sister-in-law and sending improper messages to random males with her phone number and social media accounts. My sister-in-law discovered out when she went to her parents' house and requested her father to call her phone, believing she had left it there. When they heard it ringing in my mother-in-law's pocketbook, the truth was revealed. My mother-in-law admitted what she had done, and my sister-in-law lost her cool. According to my father-in-law, who subsequently informed my brother-in-law of what had occurred, my sister-in-law began yelling at my mother-in-law. She called her vulgar names and threatened to sue her for identity theft and slander. My mother-in-law is now losing her mind and upset at me because, somehow, I caused all of this. Despite the fact that she took the darn phone in the first place. She has sent numerous voice messages to my husband, referring to me as the Satan in their lives and alleging that it was because of me that she felt obliged to try such behavior. It's ludicrous, and my spouse is really furious with her. I absolutely doubt this is my fault, but what are your thoughts? You always have hilarious responses, and I appreciate everyone who contacted out. I'll have some tea in a few weeks, so get ready. My sister-in-law isn't backing down and plans to sue my mother-in-law. We attempted to persuade her not attend, but she's adamant and over the wicked witch's antics. My mother-in-law tried to blame me for the entire affair, but my husband promptly shut her down. He has stopped communicating with her and has blocked her in everything. I have also blocked her. She even attempted to call me, but it didn't work. My sister-in-law, brother-in-law, and their partners have also stopped communicating with her. According to what my husband has heard from his father, my mother-in-law is in complete meltdown. She is absolutely perplexed as to how her own children could turn against her in this manner, and she continues to spew rubbish about betrayal and other follies. My sister-in-law is preparing to sue her for theft, slander, and identity theft. She has already engaged a lawyer, and they are in the process of scheduling a court hearing to handle the problem. It's been a stressful few weeks, and I'm proud of my sister-in-law for having the bravery to take her mother to court. My mother-in-law had anticipated this for a long time, so it is quite rewarding. My spouse also intimated that my father-in-law is getting bored of his wife's behavior. He apparently threatened to kick her out of the house again. I feel awful for him because he's such a kind guy, but I'm hopeful for his sake that things will calm down soon. That's all the knowledge I have for now. I'll keep you updated if anything else changes or if new developments occur. A month or two later, I decided it would be a good idea to update everyone who is interested in what is going on. My sister-in-law took my mother-in-law to court. They eventually reached an agreement, and my mother-in-law was required to pay a substantial sum to my sister-in-law for the harm she caused. My sister-in-law also obtained a restraining order against her mother, as she does not want to see her ever again. It's a sad scenario, but I can understand. Anyone would be tired of my mother-in-law's toxic behavior after so many years. My father-in-law has also chosen to file for divorce since he can no longer accept her behavior. When he served her with divorce papers, she lost it entirely. She ripped them up, and when he attempted to leave, she closed the door and forced him to stay. He had to phone the police, who arrived and removed her from the premises. The divorce was finalized almost a month ago. After my father-in-law kicked her out, she decided to see us. When I opened the door, she pushed her way inside, shouting at me. I swear my ears almost bled. I tried to get her to leave, but she refused and screamed at me. She shoved me, knocking me to the ground and hitting my head on our table. Thankfully, it was nothing serious, but I was concerned she would try anything worse. My husband arrived home just in time to force her out and call the cops on her. She was charged with assault for assaulting me, and we got a restraining order against her. All of my mother-in-law's children, including my husband, have stopped communicating with her and refused to have any kind of relationship with her, especially since she forced her way into our home and wounded me. Nobody knows what she's doing now, and I pray she never shows her face again. Things have been tranquil ever since she was forced to leave. We pay more visits to my father-in-law, and our family gets together more frequently, which has been beneficial. My sister-in-law is pregnant, which is very exciting. I can't wait to be an aunt. Honestly, my sister-in-law should sue her mother-in-law. She's so insane, she makes crazy eyes seem normal. Someone should probably get her a padded room at Grippy Sock Jail. I, a 19-year-old female, recently moved into a house that I inherited from my grandfather. I'm majoring in psychology, and my institution is close to the house, so it made sense for me to move in. It's more convenient in general. The house is reasonably spacious, with a great backyard encircled by a tall fence, and the most of the neighbors are kind. However, the woman who lives in the house directly to my right has caused problems. She is quite pious, as is her entire family, and they attend church every Sunday. Now, this is where the story begins. I've been working on lowering my carbon footprint, and because it was a beautiful, sunny, hot summer day, I decided to hang my clothes, including my underwear and bras, on the line in my garden. My neighbor observed and confronted me about it. She shouted something like, "Why are you hanging your dirty underwear out? You should be aware that it is disgusting and terrible. You should feel humiliated. My 6-year-old can see it. Take it down immediately." I answered by informing her that what I do in my backyard is none of her business, and that she should not have looked into my yard in the first place. Since then, whenever I see her, she throws me dirty and disgusting glances. She's also started gossiping about me to our other neighbors, which I know since I overheard her discussing it. The fence is quite tall, so she must have been attempting to see what I was doing in my backyard. Now that I think about it, perhaps I could have used a dryer instead. AITA to dry my underwear and things in the backyard? NTA for drying clothing, including underwear, outside. It has been a standard practice for generations. Many people continue to do it in warm weather. Your neighbor's 6-year-old probably doesn't care about your underwear. This is totally your neighbor's problem. While modesty is valued in some religious communities, your neighbor seems absolutely out of place here. Since the invention of laundry, people have hung their garments to dry. She cannot dictate what you do on your property. If you want to keep the peace and avoid dealing with her, hang a sheet or towels to obscure her view of your underpants. My sister is a mother of 4. Currently, she has Sloan, 14, female, Sheen, 13, male, Riley, 7, male, and Bria, 4, female. Sloan and Sheen share the same father, my sister's late husband Robbie. Robbie died 6 years ago, and my sister and her new husband Shane met 5 years ago. Shane already had Riley when he and my sister met, but Riley lacked a mother figure in his life, so my sister filled that role, and Riley now refers to her as mom. When my sister and Shane initially married, Sloan and Sheen told me that Riley was their mother's son, and that she and Shane referred to him as their brother. Sloan and Sheen, however, did not consider Riley to be their brother. They also admitted that Shane was occasionally referred to as their father, but they did not feel the same way about him. They urged me not to inform their mother because she would be upset and attempt to change their minds. I assured them they could speak with me if they needed to, and I hoped things would improve. They've told me over the years that they didn't sense a sibling link with Riley, and then with Bria when she was born. They also do not consider Shane to be their parent. Despite the fact that kids name him their stepfather, they see him differently than Robbie and my sister do. Sloan revealed the truth a few weeks ago when she created a scrapbook as instructed by her therapist. Sloan and Sheen have been visiting therapists on and off since their father's death. My sister read through the scrapbook and noted that Sloan had not included Riley, Bria, or Shane, but only Robbie, Sheen, and their extended family. She'd also shared details about her best pal. My sister asked Sloan and Sheen about it, and they told her how they felt. Later, she spoke with me. She claimed I didn't look astonished and asked why. I informed her that it had not surprised me. She replied, "You knew?" and questioned why I couldn't tell her. She claimed I was supposed to be her brother and had allowed her to continue believing everything was fine while her children built walls around their hearts. She also admitted that she should have done more to prioritize time spent with the older and younger children. I told her the kids didn't want her to know, and I didn't want them to feel unable to communicate with me. She claimed it wasn't an excuse and that I had failed as an uncle to all 4 of them by allowing this distance to build. AITA? NTA. The distance did not increase, it was always there. Your sister created the divide by attempting to fit the kids into her ideal of a perfect new family. She made them feel compelled to feel the way she wanted them to. You did the right thing by providing a safe environment for the children to confide in, and you should continue to do so. They'll need it. My wife and I married on the Saturday before Halloween and have recently returned from our honeymoon. However, we are still unable to agree on a problem that arose during the ceremony. We had always wanted a Halloween wedding but didn't want to marry on a Monday night for several reasons. If Halloween had fallen on a Saturday, we would have celebrated it. During the wedding, there was a discussion regarding holding the wedding on a real holiday. My mother stated that she would not have attended if it had been on Halloween. Everyone was taken aback and asked her for clarification. She stated, "People who get married on holidays are selfish, and I would never take trick-or-treating away from my sisters when you could have chosen any other day." She also stated that children only have roughly 12 to 14 Halloweens to trick-or-treat, and she would never take it away from them for anyone. My wife and her family were mortified. Honestly, I was not surprised. I knew she felt that way, and she had previously skipped her sister-in-law's wedding since it was on Halloween. My wife told my mother that she was being impolite and asked, "Who speaks that in front of the bride?" She accused my mother of favoritism and said that if our wedding was so unimportant, she simply leave. My mother said, "It isn't Halloween, so it's a non-issue." My wife, who was still unhappy, requested me in private to make my mother go, but I declined. My mother didn't seem to be demeaning her, she was only expressing her viewpoint. I wasn't going to kick my mother out of my wedding for a hypothetical situation. We didn't quarrel throughout our honeymoon, but my wife believes I should have made my mother go. NTA. Your mother was simply sharing her views. She even maintained it wasn't an issue because the wedding wasn't on Halloween. She wasn't playing favorites either, she had already missed her sister-in-law's wedding since it fell on Halloween. I understand her point of view. I wouldn't call individuals who have holiday weddings selfish, but I understand why she wants to preserve Halloween memories for her children. She wasn't trying to persuade you to change your mind about your date, She was simply expressing that she wouldn't have attended if it were Halloween. Your wife overreacted by asking you to kick your mother out of the wedding. That is severe. Your mother wasn't being disrespectful, she was simply being honest. My niece moved in after her parents kicked her out and tried imposing rules in my house, so I taught her a tough lesson. Kesha is 14 years old and female. She is my husband's sister's daughter. She's become increasingly defiant, to the point where her own parents have kicked her out. She has been suspended from school twice this year and is on her way to being expelled. She was suspended twice for starting fights with other girls. She has a fiery temper for an 8th grader. Of course, her parents were outraged when she was sent home from school. But when they sat her down to discuss it, she ended up hitting her mother. Her father dragged her away and kicked her out. He informed her that she was not welcome to stay there until she got her act together, and that was the end of it. I believe Kesha spent the night at a friend's house before arriving on our doorstep the next day. My husband and I both work from home, so we were present when she arrived. We were initially perplexed because we had heard nothing about her suspension or the altercation with her parents. But, of course, we allowed her in, because she is family. She explained that the day before, her parents had kicked her out for no apparent reason. She said her mother had become physical with her and she was afraid, so she came to us. Even as she said all of this, we were doubtful. We knew Kesha had been on a cruel streak recently, so my husband snuck away to contact his sister and get the whole story. Of course, his sister gave him the entire truth. She claimed it broke their hearts to do it, but they didn't feel secure having her in the house anymore, so they kicked her out. My brother-in-law went on to say that he was tired of allowing her get away with her behavior. If she was going to learn, she needed to do it the hard way. My spouse has always had a sweet place for his niece. He couldn't help but invite her to stay with us temporarily. We don't have any children yet, so we have plenty of room for her to stay. I was concerned about the concept because I had no prior experience with children, let alone aggressive ones. But I decided that it was better for her to stay with us rather than with a random acquaintance until things between her and her parents calmed down. The first night went good. She was on her best behavior, and we had a lovely supper together. My husband and I had hoped her entire stay with us would be like this. We believed she could just need a pause to think things through, and that this would be beneficial to her. Unfortunately, the peace did not endure very long. We awoke the next day and resumed our normal activities. We took baths, played music in the kitchen while preparing breakfast, and arrived at our home office by 8 a.m. To begin our day. Kesha didn't leave the guest room until around 11:30. We heard her moving around in the kitchen and went out to see if she wanted to join us for lunch. We could tell just by looking at her that this was not the case. As we went into the room, she appeared tough and gave us a death stare. I asked her how she slept, and she sarcastically replied, "Like crap." My husband raged at her, telling her she couldn't talk to me like that. She lashed back, stating she could be in a better mood if I wasn't so loud in the mornings. Apparently, she heard me singing in the shower and claimed I woke her up. She asked if we could keep it quiet in the mornings from now on. We were stunned. I'd never had a guest speak to me like this before, especially a child. She then retreated to her room for several hours. We needed to get back to work, but we were both concerned about how the remainder of the day would unfold. Around 7 p.m., Kesha emerged from her room. I had saved her a plate for dinner, so we figured she would come out and eat. Instead, she threw a piece of paper down on the counter and began walking towards the front door. My husband asked where she was going, and she answered, "Out with friends." He warned her she couldn't go out alone right now, especially at night, with no idea where she was going or who she'd be with. I intervened and asked her what the piece of paper she had laid down was about. The list was handwritten. I grabbed it up and read it aloud. Kesha's house rules. No music or singing before noon. No disgusting food for dinner, also known as veggies. No boring television shows. Avoid asking foolish questions. Please do not enter my room. My husband laughed at the list, but Kesha's expression was dead serious. She truly expected us to obey her crazy regulations in our own home. I had had enough with this bullshit. I went to the door, grabbed my coat and keys, and instructed her to get into my car. She was perplexed, but my tone made it clear that I was not joking. She left for the car, and I assured my husband we'd be back in a minute. We traveled in quiet for around 15 minutes. I was furious, and I could tell she was too. After a while, Kesha realized she didn't know this part of town. She hesitated before asking where we were headed. I informed her that if she didn't want to stay with her parents or with us, I'd show her where she would end up. We were approaching downtown, and the look on Kesha's face told me she had never been to this section of town before. Every street corner was crowded with homeless people, all of whom appeared dirty and high. There were tents and trash everywhere. When we came to a stoplight, people approached the windows and began banging, asking for money. Some of them were outraged, and one man even kicked the car as we drove away. I could see Kesha was afraid, but neither of us said anything. Then I pulled into a parking area and turned off the car, ensuring the doors were locked. We had parked in front of a homeless shelter. People lined up outside the entrance, hoping to acquire a hot supper, blankets, or, if they were lucky, a roof over their heads for the night. Some of the guys were yelling and arguing with one another, but the majority of the women simply looked sorrowful. It was dreadful, and even I was afraid to be there. Finally, Kesha asked if we could leave. I informed her that if she wanted to come back to our house, she had to follow the rules. I also informed her that if she wanted to stay with us, she needed to call her mother and apologize, as her parents simply wanted the best for her. She nodded, and I knew I had communicated effectively. I don't believe anyone in her life had ever put her in her place like that. But, I believe, at that moment, a part of her knew it was precisely what she needed. When we came home, my spouse seemed anxious. Of course, he was intrigued about where I had taken her and what we had discussed, but I gave him a look that indicated I would tell him later. We all went into the kitchen, and I took out the plate of leftovers we had set aside for Kesha earlier. I heated it for her, and we sat down at the table together. My husband and I were startled that Kesha spoke out first. She inquired about what we both did for work. My husband was taken aback, but pleased to respond. After that, we talked about our careers, local colleges, and various extracurricular activities she may participate in. It was actually a wonderful evening. I may have been tough with her earlier, but I believe I got through to her. Now I only hope it sticks and she may return to her parents' place soon. Let's see what happens after she apologizes to her mother. The day after we visited the homeless shelter, Kesha called her mother. She asked if I would sit with her while they talked, and I of course agreed. She truly made an outstanding apology to her mother. By the end, she was in tears but smiling since her mother had accepted her apologies and invited her home. She startled me by asking if she could stay with us for a little longer. Her mother consented, so we decided she could stay with us until the following Monday, when she had to return to school. We may have had a bumpy start, but I believe this was the finest possible outcome. It's been a couple months since Kesha visited us. Since then, her conduct seemed to have changed completely. She has not received any further school suspensions, detentions, or calls to the office. Her grades have greatly improved, and she even auditioned and was accepted into her school dance squad. Her parents say she hasn't been hanging out with the same pals, and her attitude at home has significantly improved. Overall, I would say her stay at our house was a success for her. I'm extremely proud of her and excited to see what her future holds. God bless you. Thank you for identifying her as a child in need of instruction. You'd be an amazing mother. Great job, Auntie. I hope her parents are half as supportive as you are. My partner is upset with his parents about this, but some of his siblings and parents believe I was the jerk. So, here we are. I'm a 29-year-old female professional boxer who is probably in my final year or two of competitive competition. My guy, a 35-year-old man, is very supportive of my career and a true gem. We live on the opposite coast from his family, and he has had a strained relationship with his father for years, so I have never met them. His parents, on the other hand, have been working hard to make things right over the previous year. When he indicated that we will be in a nearby city for one of my matches, they wanted to have a family supper. I was genuinely pretty excited about it. I don't have a family, and his family is large, so I've always wondered what it was like. We tried to schedule dinner before the match because I always look a mess for a couple of days after a competition, but they had a conflict. So we scheduled it for a few days before flying abroad to give me some healing time. I wasn't seriously injured, but face bruises and cuts are impossible to hide. My partner had already informed his parents about what to expect, but I don't think they took it seriously. When we arrive, his mother is visibly uncomfortable, while his father simply stares at me. Some of his siblings and their families were present, and I was swamped by the nieces and nephews, who all had a million questions. That's where I could have made a mistake. I informed them about boxing and showed them a video of a portion of my battle on my phone to help them understand why I appeared to be injured. I told them that I was all right. It clearly impressed a couple of the nieces, as they spent the entire supper asking me questions and being amazed that girls could accomplish things like that. His father often attempted to redirect the conversation, which irritated him. He then remarked that it was excellent that I was thinking about retiring and starting a real life soon, indicating that I would have enough time to put together a household and have a family with my boyfriend. I told him that at most, I might become a trainer, and that I already had the life I want. His mother commented that it was a shame I was bruising up my nice face. I joked that this was my winner face, and that she should have seen the other woman. Except for the children and one of his sisters, the entire situation seemed strange and uncomfortable. When we arrived home, my boyfriend checked his texts and then called and raged at his parents. I later learned that his mother had told him that I was extremely improper and a negative influence on the children. One of his brothers inquired whether he was going to bring Barbarian Barbie back for Christmas because his children were so excited. However, his cool sister informed him that their daughter had already asked when Aunt OP will return. It's actually caused a big problem between my boyfriend and his parents, and I'm thinking if I should have simply kept the boxing stuff to myself. However, Barbarian Barbie sounds like a fantastic name to me. NTA. Your boyfriend warned the family, but he still decided to move the meal from before to after your disagreement. You have nothing to be ashamed about. I feel horrible for some of those kids though. Having such narrow-minded, oppressive parents and grandparents must be awful. You informed his parents about the natural repercussions of your career. They had plenty of time to discuss it with their children beforehand if they wanted to. Assuming you are correct and they did not take your warning seriously, they still had the option to explain it in a kid-friendly manner throughout the dinner. In the lack of explicit guidance from them, you acted in a natural and reasonable manner. You provided a short and comprehensive explanation of your apparent injuries, including video evidence of where they came from. I'll confess that I was startled and impressed by how you articulated your explanation. Then I realized that, like any other career, you'd undoubtedly had plenty of practice answering basic questions about it. So I'm no longer surprised, but I'm still really impressed. NTA. The amusing part is that the family is completely overreacting. While it's fantastic that girls can be boxers, most girls, and boys, don't want to be. This means that, like many other things that children are enthused about, their enthusiasm for this will decrease. I am a 40-year-old woman, and my cousin, a 36-year-old man, married his 35-year-old wife 5 years ago. During that time, she has been a welcome addition to our family. She's an academic who works as an assistant professor in a major metropolis in the neighboring state. Although she does not commute to university every day, she works from home the majority of the time. My husband, a 42-year-old man, and I paid them an unannounced visit a while back and were surprised to see how disorganized their home was. It wasn't too bad, although the floors should have been vacuumed and there were filthy dishes in the sink. My cousin's wife performs the majority of the cleaning, but since she started her new work, she has had less time for it because she is constantly grading or teaching. My cousin doesn't do much cleaning because his father is quite traditional about gender roles and did not raise him to help his wife clean the house. My cousin's wife has done an excellent job of teaching him to do more around the house, but it has been a lengthy process. When my cousin's wife celebrated her birthday recently, my sister, 45, and I decided to buy her a Roomba to help her keep the house tidy. My cousin had personally apologized to me during my previous visit for the house not being as clean as it should have been, so my sister and I decided that the Roomba would be good for her. Apparently it wasn't. She was angered by the idea that she was a lousy housekeeper and that cleaning was completely her burden, rather than asking our cousin to help her more often. What bothered me the most was that my cousin's wife gave the Roomba to Goodwill. If she didn't want the gift, she could have returned it to me, allowing my sister and I to receive our money back. I don't believe I'm T since she could use some aid. But now my cousin informs me that his wife is still furious and would not attend family events. The holidays are approaching, and if she does not appear, everyone will wonder where she is. My cousin is upset because he will be caught in the middle and obliged to explain her absence politely. Oh, AITA, big time. First and foremost, with seasonal changes, stressful work, and life in general, things must occasionally be put on hold in order to accommodate higher priorities. You paid an impromptu visit and were surprised to find her unprepared for visitors. I might understand anxiety if the house had mounds of items everywhere, making it impossible to move and posing a health risk, but dishes in the sink and unvacuumed, unswept floors are nothing. That's just a normal daily mess. Your cousin's wife also mentioned that she works from home. What do you believe this means? Do you suppose she's just sitting about twiddling her thumbs, waiting for something to do while getting paid? Second, you say your cousin's father taught him traditional gender norms, yet it appears that your parents did the same. Along with questioning why you're so critical, you should also consider what you've internalized and why you believe cleaning should be left to the woman in the home. This is a bizarre case of cognitive dissonance. Finally, I'm grateful she donated it. You deserve to lose money for perpetuating gender stereotypes and claiming that your cousin's wife isn't doing enough. You have no control over what someone does with anything you've gifted them. Honestly, I'm voting for YTA. You went to her house and complained about the degree of housekeeping to her spouse, whom you openly confess does nothing to help around the house, but not about her spouse. She works a tough job while still doing the majority of the housework that her spouse does not do enough of. Yet you believe it is appropriate to give her a vacuum cleaner as a birthday present because her spouse is too manly to help around the house adequately? Why not give it to him on his birthday, as he is the one who is lacking? Also, her husband is an AITA. Why the hell did he explain the present to her in that manner? It was rude. A spa gift card would have been a more appropriate gift for her. She works hard, but is unable to complete all of her responsibilities. Your relative refuses to help with the housekeeping because he believes that traditional gender norms are the norm. Perhaps you should have bought your relative a vacuum and cleaning supplies instead of his wife. It's really insulting to give her something on her birthday unless she has said to you that she wishes she had a Roomba. The gift was unsuitable. Am I the asshole for breaking up with my unmotivated girlfriend who has nothing going for her and might become homeless? I, male 24, met a girl, female 22, in a community college class when I was 20. We came from very different backgrounds. I was middle class trying to find a cheaper way to go to college. She was living in almost poverty going to school because she was forced to by her parents who were threatening to kick her out. She dropped out about a year into her schooling while I continued and finished. During her first year we formed a relationship and she moved into my apartment more or less. Her relationship with her parents is pretty much non-existent and she has little to no outside friends besides one or two women she knew from high school, who are deadbeats in my opinion. I make around $80K a year so we live relatively comfortably, but there's still some strain on finances. I can't say exactly when I started losing feelings, but the fact that she refuses to work, will not cook and wants to eat out every day, does not want to go to school, and continuously wants to buy and spend money on clothes and other stuff just slowly started grating me more and more. I work in a female-dominated workplace, and seeing, having conversations, and interacting with coworkers who have so much going for them, have fun hobbies, and aspirations makes it all the more worse when your girlfriend is chronically online and spends 7 hours a day scrolling through Instagram or TikTok reels and thinks having sex is all she needs to do on her end. Our relationship isn't bad. We have fights every now and then like an average couple, have an active sex life, but that's pretty much it. From her perspective, if I broke up with her it would be out of nowhere, but I'm pretty much done. And now I could move on quickly and have nothing to be regretful about, as shitty as it sounds. The problem comes in her having no job, no finances, almost no friends and no family support unit. I'm not a monster, I don't want to make someone virtually homeless, but I don't want to be stuck with someone who has nothing going for them either. I don't know what to do. Edit. Thank you for all the advice in this post. I don't know if this sub allows updates, but I'll talk to her tomorrow about this and start the process of working this out. Relevant comments. OP explains. Yeah, if she was a toxic or just bad partner I wouldn't have too much trouble ending it, but she's fairly nice, just very lazy. I've tried to talk her into trying different hobbies or interests to get her active, but she always turns them down each time. How long? She wasn't as bad when we were still in school, she at least helped cook and had some aspirations to be a nurse. But I guess when she started getting comfortable her habits built on until it got to this point. This wouldn't have been a 4-year relationship if this was how it started. She only leaves the apartment when I take her to get food. She either sleeps or is on her phone. Is she miserable with her life? She's not really miserable. She always sends me 30+ memes at work on IG, and is honestly a pretty funny person. She has her mood swings on some days, but that's how she usually is. I've tried talking to her about this more than once, but she either thinks I'm not being serious or tries to change the subject. The one time I was serious she said would try looking at courses again, but it eventually fell through and I stopped trying. She just doesn't really care. Update 1. For starters, I want to thank everyone for all the advice I was given on the last thread, as it helped me formulate how I would go about doing this. When I made that post I was having an extremely bad day and didn't expect it to blow up like it did, so I don't think I was able to give her a fair defense. Also, I got dozens of messages, ranging from asking me to hand out her contact info so they could take her in as a live-in sex girlfriend, to helpful advice telling me to start hiding anything valuable. When I had said that she had come from poverty, her father is a laborer while her mother also lives a similar lifestyle to how she lives now. Their home is maybe 1,100 square feet and in a terrible place in town, and given her father's past ultimatum, I don't think he will take her back as she hasn't been back home in years. Yes, I have talked to her about this, since January, maybe 3 times. Either by gently telling her it would be nice if she went out more to find a hobby, at the very least to flat out say she was wasting away on her phone and that she needs to get a job or go back to school. Each time she either changes the subject, makes it a joke, or follows through for a couple of days before going back to her usual self. She is a kind partner, who asks me about my day, always tries to make me laugh or lighten the mood when I get annoyed, and generally shows a lot of affection. Which makes me feel terrible when none of that works anymore, And I just see her as another person. Now for the confrontation. Last night when we were both getting ready for bed, I didn't take my clothes off and instead just stood there telling her we needed to talk. At first she was just smiling and jumping up and down on the bed with her knees thinking I wasn't as serious as I was, but eventually she was able to read the mood. I told her something wasn't feeling right anymore, that I've tried to make this work and be patient with her for the past few years, but I didn't know how much more time I was willing to spend waiting for her to get a job, go back to school, or just get a hobby if anything. I told her that it annoyed and grated me that she just didn't seem to care about herself, and that I hated that she had no goals or aspirations. This was probably the first time in a long time she was as attentive as she's ever been during this conversation. And agreed to whatever I was saying, even also giving suggestions on where she can apply, what courses were starting to interest her, and even said I could look over her as she submitted applications online to make sure she wasn't lying. In her head it seemed like I was still willing to make this work, and a part of me believed this would finally be the moment that she would change. So it made the next part even harder for me and for her. At first I told her I didn't love her the same way, which slowly but eventually led to me saying I didn't feel anything at all about this relationship and was jaded. I was tired and wanted a fresh start with someone who was more goal-oriented, and wanted something more out of life. When she realized what I was getting at, she started to cry and asked why I didn't mention this sooner, and I said I've always asked her to cook, to go out with me to try something out, or to just go back to school, even when I offered to pay for her classes. Anything. She said she understands that part, but was upset why I didn't say it was leading to me losing interest in her, because from her perspective it seemed as if I still loved her all the same. She started apologizing, saying she wasn't in the right mental state and saying nothing was motivating her. And she genuinely had no interest in any hobbies, the only thing she liked was spending time with me, which is all she looked forward to on the day when I came home. None of this was really affecting my emotions besides making me feel uncomfortable. So I tried to continue by saying, I think her lifestyle would be better with another person, but she immediately cut me off and became more panicked. She started to apologize again for what she's done and said she would be a better girlfriend, that she would go with me tomorrow to wherever I wanted to go and would look for courses in August that she could start doing. But she did not want to lose me since she had nothing else in life and absolutely hated that I stopped loving her. There were so many tears and snot that I said we would have this conversation again when she calmed down, and we eventually did in an hour or so. She pleaded to give her 2 months to make a change and give her another chance, and promised that she would change. Again she listed off all the places she would apply to and said she would be a better partner. I never wanted to make her homeless, so this seemed like a good settlement. Even though I still had my doubts. I then reaffirmed that I wanted to see other people, but she seemed much more adamant on this issue than the aspirations issue that she would be able to fix this. She said just give her a month to try and make the relationship work, and asked me again and again on what she could do to make her love her again, and that she didn't want me to hate her. She said that this was the worst part of it all. In the only person that she had just done. It seemed as if she was about to break down again, so I said okay, we'll see how this relationship is in a month. In my mind, if I'm allowing her 2 months to get back on her feet, then by a month she would already be ready to move on. I also didn't want her to suffer a complete mental breakdown while I was still living with her, so giving her a month to let her fix the relationship would give her enough time to accept things. I slept on the couch last night and will probably continue doing so for a while. She came out at about 3 a.m. wanting to talk some more, but I said I was exhausted and we would do it tomorrow. She then slept on the floor beside me for the rest of the night apologizing again. When I told her to stop, she silently said okay and sobbed for a bit under her blanket. But that's everything that's happened so far. This was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, but I regret nothing and feel much better letting everything out. I don't know how this situation will be in 2 months, but I was firm that it was the deadline. This post will probably get buried, so I probably won't do another update since I don't think anyone will care about this in a week or a month, but I will definitely private message those of you who have been helping me through this on how it turns out or those who just want to be updated. But yeah, thanks. Edit, for all of you who keep asking what my workplace is, I'm a RN. Update 2, I feel like this will be an easier place to post since it's my page and I don't have to worry about over spamming with small or inconsequential updates anywhere else, as it's only for those wanting to read. I want everyone who has privately messaged me to know I read them all, especially those of you who have gone through similar circumstances as me and have shared your stories. I've been doing some self-reflection and think I know how I want to go about this that will help with my lack of communication skills. I know I'm not a perfect person, but I still stand by my decisions I made that night 100% through and through. I might post an update sooner in a week or so, as the day after our fight I'm filled with a bit more hope than usual. Don't know how long it will last, but better make use of it. But again, I just wanted to post this for everyone sharing your stories with me privately, as I can't message you all, as it's been helping me make decisions on what to do about this all immensely. Hello, I have a partner who wants to start taking an interest in baking. She's a bit self-conscious and doesn't like asking or looking for outside help, and I'm kind of clueless in the subject, but I want to be able to find a resource to give some help for her. Are there any YouTube playlists or something similar you would all recommend to get started for someone who has little experience cooking as well? Update 3. This is a long post, and no, I'm not going to give a TLDR. Hey all, it's been about a week since my last post and I thought I'd give an update. A lot has happened, including the explosion of my first update thread. I have over 50 plus DMs asking me for an update, so instead of copy and pasting replies, I'll do another one. I find it easier to write than to speak in many situations, so this has been a great way to help my decisions and clear my head. Writing everything down has helped tremendously, and I will continue to do so until this is all over, and I will nuke everything afterwards. After the night confrontation, we didn't really speak all too much at home, with it being dry and awkward for a day or two, but I have been told I'm a workaholic by nature, so it was easy for me to stay at the hospital as a distraction, but in that time she did start to cook again. We weren't in the mood to go out to eat together. Eventually though, I sat down with her after she asked for a more thorough conversation on why I felt our relationship was failing. She promised not to cry or get upset, but wanted me to be 100% upfront so she had a better way of understanding, stating she wanted to try everything to fix this. I was really apprehensive about this, and I can't really explain why, but given being together for 4 years, I wanted to at least make an effort myself out of respect, even though a large part of me was angry for even doing so, as I feel I've never had the same from her. There have been many different camps in my last update, the main ones being kick her out immediately and leave her before it gets worse, try to find a way to fix our relationship or end the relationship altogether but continue living with someone who would probably become absolutely neurotic. If I was going to let her stay for 2 months, I would absolutely not be dealing with that. I took consideration in all these main advice discussions and read through almost every reply. Even the most assumptive, bizarre and downright unhinged Redditor takes. More importantly, I took heavy influence from those who have shared with me their past stories, which either led to them being stuck in loveless relationships for years or eventually being able to overcome their problems and have an even stronger connection. Thank you again for your private messages. I read through a lot of your lives. Now for our conversation. She said she saw something on TikTok where couples put a phone on a table with a timer and wanted to do something similar, for each person to air what made them upset. I said that was dumb. If we were going to talk about our problems, it would be better if there was no time limit. She eventually agreed and said I could go first, asking me first when was the time that I completely lost my love for her. As I said before, it was never one action, but a grating feeling that got worse and worse until it got to this point, and I told her that, so she then asked when was the time I felt the most angry. I said it would take some time to think for me, and she said that was fine. After a few minutes something came to mind. I couldn't formulate the right words at first, but it eventually just started to come out. I told her the worst time was when I was first starting at my hospital. To keep it short, the tempo was brutal. It was constant work with little to no downtime, as I was constantly learning new things that school had never taught me, while being expected to be able to handle it as a professional. It was without a doubt the most stressed I've ever been, and I feel like other RNs can relate here. That year hardened the way I think now. That hard work does pay off, if you have the drive and the passion. I told her I think that was when I started losing feelings the fastest, seeing her at home doing absolutely nothing. Coming home to no food made, to her not working a job, to her not learning anything, completely stuck to the internet with nothing to show for it. I said it made me even more upset when I had given suggestions for jobs with pretty easy schedules, or to find a new interest in school that would pan out better than last time, only to be rejected at every attempt. I told her flat out that it disgusted me. She asked me why I didn't make this a bigger issue at the time, that I should have communicated this to her, but I said there's some things that shouldn't have to be said. I shouldn't have to remind her to wash her ass, eat, do something other than mindlessly scrolling on her phone for hours at a day, every day. I also told her that after coming home from the hospital during more stressful days, the last thing I wanted was to spend my time begging my girlfriend to do something productive, so I held my tongue and settled, as she was still nice and caring. I had no other reasons to end it, and so the resentment grew worse from then on. It was around here that I became more mean to my regret now, but I will still input it as I have everything else. I told her that when she dropped nursing, I was upset since I felt that she was more than capable of doing what I had done. But after spending more time in the relationship, and spending more time getting to know her, I knew that with the type of person she was, there was no way she could have ever finished. Which is why I suggested easier and more laid-back jobs, less demanding majors for school, Shit, even if she just cooked or found an interesting hobby at that point, I would have appreciated it. Still, she chose to do nothing for years. It's just the type of person she was and why I felt done for her romantically over time. She asked me if I hated her, and I said I didn't know. I told her she was very loving and kind, but I hated how she handled her life to this point. That I felt no ill will towards her after airing everything out, but I also felt nothing else. I just felt done and ready to move on. Throughout this conversation we kept eye contact, and there were times it seemed like she would break, but like she said, she remained as calm as she could while I said what I had to say. I told her I was done and she could say her piece now, but she asked if we could continue the conversation later and locked herself in our room for the rest of the day. The next day we sat down again and finished the conversation. She told me that she thinks she's depressed, saying that she didn't feel sad before that night, just had no motivation to do anything. I had a couple of messages telling me to ask her to get tested for ADHD, but when I started bringing it up she was very adamant that is not something she felt comfortable with. I knew she didn't like needles or going to the hospital in general, but her flat-out refusing to get tested for disorders when I told her it was not at all like a regular hospital visit surprised me. She asked me if she was able to change her behavior. Would I give her another chance? I said I didn't know, as I felt nothing right now and didn't know if her doing it would bring any feeling back. Especially since it took my breaking point to do so. She asked if there was any compromise, and I told her again, if in a month I felt like there was enough reason to stay together I would, but that there was no guarantee that my feelings would return. But I would match any effort she also put out. She was frustrated by my answer, but I said that's how it would be. She gave me a piece of paper to look at that she was working on last night that had a list of hobbies and interests she wanted to look into, the two major ones being photography and cooking again. She told me that she was looking into these while also showing me her phone, giving proof that she was putting in applications on Indeed and Glassdoor for some entry-level positions that she might get hired in. I told her if she was able to show enough passion or interest in these hobbies that she showed, I would not care about her working, just anything to improve herself. But if she didn't do anything at all, then it would be best to look for a new job to help her if she moves out. I've also been asked in private messages if I have any personal friends to talk to. There's two female coworkers I confide some information in given how many hours we work together at our hospital, and who I completely trust, as in my opinion they are extremely grounded. They both said I would eventually get love bombed and this would all go back to how it once was, and that I needed to stand firm with moving on. They've very helpful friends who have even offered to let me stay over for a few nights, giving the reason that I would fall for her manipulation if I continued being anywhere near her, in their own words. But it didn't feel right since I'm still technically in a relationship, but I said I would consider it if the situation worsened. But again, I find them grounded, so I always try to take their advice to heart. Despite numerous messages from you all privately or openly telling me that this will be a mistake, I want to make the attempt to give this one last try. Though I feel heavily closed and guarded and still feel indifferent with our current situation. But a lot of you have told me this can eventually change with enough work from both parties. I have also taken the advice of those saying to cut off sex, which was my intention from the start anyway, by continuing to sleep in the living room. But each day she has been sleeping on the floor right below me, even when I tell her I'd rather be alone with my thoughts, telling me this is something she would not accept. But that's everything so far. Next update will probably be at the month mark, as there's nothing else I feel like I need to say for now, just waiting to see if things can get better now that we're working on this somewhat. My autistic son discovers an incredible talent just in time for the school talent show, surprising everyone. Poor souls struggle to make friends. Both the school and our family are constantly trying to help, but my sweet little boy simply cannot hack it. Despite all this, we keep trying. He is on the spectrum and loves talking about space and Apple. I am slowly teaching him social skills, but it takes a lot of face plantings for anything to stick. He absolutely drives us crazy by talking about Apple products over and over and over. One time he talked so much about Apple while I was driving that I zoned out to the point where I ran over a cone. Last night he hit me with the old, "I entered the talent show." I truly did not expect him to proceed with, "I'm going to recite every iPhone ever made." Usually, I try my best not to hurt feelings, but I simply cannot sit on the sidelines and watch my child commit social suicide. I gave an absolute no and reminded him all he talks about is Apple, and that his classmates do not want to sit there and listen to him talk about iPhones again. He bawled in my arms and said he had no talent. I let him cry it out, then we looked online at different talent show ideas. He didn't like anything he saw. Then a light bulb went off. This kid loves sound. He likes loud, annoying sounds that make me want to scratch my noise-sensitive ears out. So I downloaded him a DJ app and Tidal. We found 6 songs that carried a lot of the weight, then he began mixing. He was awesome. I couldn't believe how easily he took to it. By the end of the night he was able to echo out songs and do all of these cool siren sounds while waiting for the beat to drop. He even came up with fading out the last song and setting a vibrating alarm on his watch, 6 minutes, in order not to lose track of time. We agreed that as soon as the alarm goes off, if he isn't done, he will move on to the last song and fade it out quickly. We packed him a cool little outfit to wear with mirrored sunglasses, his iPad and speaker, then off he went to school. I have been praying all morning. His teacher was really excited for him and I hope he doesn't back out. Even if he does, I am hoping he will stick with this hobby and maybe enter in the next talent show. Comment: it went really great. Better than I expected, honestly. The kids got up and danced and his teacher said this is a moment she will always remember. She told us she wasn't supposed to say this, but he was the best out of all the kids. When he walked out of the door, he was beaming like a light. I think it's the first time he's ever felt connected with the kids. My girlfriend is convinced that I'm having an affair with my doubles partner. I am not, and it's driving me mad. I am a pro athlete. I won't say which sport exactly for anonymity, but it's one where you can play singles and doubles. I met my girlfriend 2.5 years ago and we had a wonderful relationship. I also made it very clear from the beginning that I would often have to be away traveling around the country and occasionally internationally to compete in tournaments, and she accepted this and has never had a problem with it until the coaches paired me with this girl who I'll call Lucy. Who I'll admit I have become good friends with, but that's it, she isn't my type. Lucy is very conventionally attractive and most guys, 100% not me, would find her more attractive than my girlfriend. I think some of her gossipy friends have gotten into her head telling her she shouldn't trust me going to hotels with this attractive girl without her there. My girlfriend is always welcome to come along to spectate but usually can't because of work. She then started reading into things that aren't there, like not being happy that me and Lucy hugged each other after winning a tournament together recently. Like what? And apparently looking too close on the team's social media even though those pictures are designed to make the team look tight. She is asking all sorts of unreasonable things, like asking me to stay in a separate hotel with Lucy. The coaches book the hotels and the whole team stays in the same one. It would look so strange if I asked not to be with them. My girlfriend was not happy with this explanation. She is now demanding that I ask for a different doubles partner, which I refuse to do, firstly because doing so to me would be like admitting there's something going on when there isn't, and secondly I am not messing with my chances of success and winning titles because she can't get over her insecurities. During a recent conversation I admitted to my girlfriend that soon in the run-up to the Olympics I will probably be spending more time training with Lucy than ever before, and she absolutely blew up saying she loves me but can't deny what's going on right in front of her eyes and she can't do this anymore. I screamed there is nothing going on and she stormed out and said she is going to her parents for a few days. And that's where we are at the moment. My goodness, I love this girl so much and I just want her to trust me, damn it. I have never given her a reason not to. Any advice on how to convince her to trust me? Please don't ditch Lucy as a doubles partner because I ain't doing that. TLDR, I have an attractive mixed doubles partner I play at pro level with. My girlfriend has listened to gossip and believes I'm having an affair. I am not. Any advice? Relevant comments. Commenter: what Olympic sports have specific mixed doubles events for people who only play mixed doubles? I know tennis has mixed doubles, but the pairings are made from the people who have already qualified as individuals or non-mixed doubles. I don't think you're doing anything wrong. So this isn't a suggestion, just a question. Why do you specifically play mixed doubles instead of singles or non-mixed doubles? OP, I play all three. There's no rule against competing in all of them. Mixed doubles is just the most successful for me at the moment. Commenter: you have a strong emotional connection with another female. Your relationship isn't just like co-workers, you guys are partners in a sport. Can you really blame her for not liking it? She didn't start a relationship with you and expected you to have such a strong bond with another female. And the more time you guys spend together, the stronger that bond is going to become. I understand it's because of your career, but who would want a partner that has a strong connection with another person of opposite sex, making a career together? They would prefer it if their partner didn't have that. OP, you make a good point, but she knew what she was signing up for at the beginning. I made it perfectly clear what dating an athlete in this sport would be like, including that it would mean training and potentially partnering up with women who are very physically fit. She was always okay with this until Lucy. Update. I don't know if anyone really wanted an update, but things got pretty crazy. After my girlfriend stormed off to her parents, we spoke again over the phone and she still didn't believe me and I was tired of it, so we agreed to end things. She came and collected her stuff a couple of days later and I thought that would be the end. Then 3 weeks passed and she suddenly came to my place at night telling me what a fool she had been and claiming she had come to her senses and knew I wasn't cheating. I was pretty happy to hear that, and we had some pretty great make-up sex and it seemed the problem was solved. Then for like a week and a half I started to get very suspicious of this sudden change of heart. How she went from being 100% sure I was having an affair to 100% sure I'm not, like the flick of a switch. Her behavior was also off, like she was trying too hard to make it up to me. She was never asking me to do any chores like she completely fairly did before. I was coming home to a girlfriend who had my favorite meal made on the table and dressed up sexy for me, which was out of character. I then confronted her, demanding to know why the sudden change. She denied it at first but then admitted that she hired a PI in those 3 weeks she was gone to get proof of me and Lucy having an affair to prove she was right. When in fact he did the opposite when he told her after his weeks of watching that we definitely wasn't having an affair. This was a breach of trust and of my private life, so I told her we are over permanently this time. She actually accepted this quite calmly, seeming pretty resigned to it. We then parted amicably. She packed and left again, but I did speak to her yesterday where she seemed in okay spirits enjoying Christmas with her family, and she told me she is getting therapy in the new year to work on her issues and paranoia. And for me, I am all good. I thought I would be really broken up about it, but I actually feel quite happy and free. Just enjoying Christmas and looking forward to trying to get into the Olympics without all the drama. Oh, and to those who thought Lucy might have been into me, she has not made any moves on me since the breakup at all, and there has been no changes in our dynamic. Thanks to all who commented. TLDR. We broke up. She came back claiming to believe me. Turned out she hired a PI. We permanently broke up over this. We are both doing well. Am I the asshole for accidentally revealing my brother's vasectomy when his girlfriend talked about their plans to have kids? My brother, Mark 40, won the lottery when he was 20. It was $1,000 a week for life. He was young and wanted to travel. He dropped out of school and has spent his entire adulthood basically seeing the world. He comes home to visit every few years and we FaceTime with him when he is near a signal. He doesn't travel first class or stay in expensive resorts, so he has actually built up some nice savings. He came home with a girlfriend, Haley, 28, this year. They met when they got stuck in South America during the pandemic. She has been traveling since she graduated from university and she works out of a laptop. I, F54, live in the same city where I was born. I love it here. I love being close to my parents and my grandchildren. And most of my siblings. Mark hated being the youngest of 8 and always swore he would not have kids. Our parents were older when they had him and they didn't have the energy for him, truth be told. Mark came home when he was 30 and told us all that he had had a vasectomy and that he would not be contributing to the world population. Haley is a pretty young thing and she is also intelligent and sweet. I can understand why anyone would fall in love with her. We were having a family BBQ to celebrate Mark being in town. There were maybe 30 people in my parents' yard and house. I was talking to Haley about her future plans now that the world opened up again. She said that she was ready to settle down and start a family. I asked if they were planning on adopting from one of the countries that they had traveled to or if they would try in North America. She said they had talked about it and would be having at least one child of their own. This may be where I fucked up. I asked where Mark got his vasectomy reversed or if they were having in vitro fertilization. I know they can harvest sperm from a testicle even after a vasectomy. She went very quiet and went over to Mark. They spoke and they left. Mark called me later that night to scream at me for ruining his life. He hadn't told her and he was planning on just continuing to travel and maybe adopt if they decided on it. He said I shared private medical information and that he never wanted to see me again. I apologized over and over. I seriously had no way of knowing that he was planning a future with this girl without telling her a pretty big piece of the puzzle might be missing. I feel bad for him, but I think he should have told her. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Your brother is a self-centered jerk. He was just going to lie and string that poor girl along. Thank you so much for telling her the truth even if it was an accident. God, what an $1 your brother is, shame on him. Please tell everyone he dates that he has had a vasectomy. OP. He's usually not in the country. OP on how old the girlfriend was when her brother met her. OP. I think she was 25 when they met. Comment 2. I mean, did you slip up or did you know you were kicking a wasp's nest? OP. They have been together for almost 3 years and are planning one biological kid. I assumed it must have come up. Comment 3. So they talked about it and he didn't bring it up on his own terms at all? Wouldn't that have been the time for him to tell his partner about the vasectomy? Update. My brother now refuses to visit our parents if I'm around because I accidentally told his girlfriend at the time that he had a vasectomy when she told me that they were trying for kids. So it wasn't that he was planning on reversing his vasectomy or anything, he wanted to do the same as that poor woman's boyfriend. Just lead her on until it was too late for her to have kids. He came by this summer with his girlfriend and I stayed away. I guess he told this one that he and I have a bad relationship and that I'm jealous of his riches, lol, after his lottery win. I'm not going to do anything about it, but I hope she finds out before he screws her future as well. Sort of a funny thing though. His lottery money may run out soon. It turns out that he should have paid more attention. The money he won was $1,000 a week for life and was actually only for 25 years. He does have savings, so he shouldn't be destitute or anything, but he also does not have a pension or anything. I am interested to see what happens in 4 years. Comments. Comment 1. You might have spilled the beans, but it looks like his secret was bound to come out sooner or later anyway. It's cool that you're not trying to get involved, but hoping his girlfriend finds out shows you still care about her. Comment 2. Where are your parents on this? If I knew my sons were this manipulative and deceitful, I'd be disgusted. I'd also be telling every single woman he brings home, which means they'd vanish, I'm sure. My dad kicked me out because my stepmom falsely accused me of stealing my stepsister's college savings. Because my stepmother had falsely accused me of stealing my stepsister's college savings, my father expelled me from the house. In light of the fact that many individuals have critiqued my response, I am in need of information regarding whether or not I responded appropriately to my estranged father's recent contact with me. My relationship with him has been strained for the past 8 years, and we have not been on speaking terms. After I had just graduated from college, he kicked me out of the house when I was 21 years old. A few months passed during which I was living with my family until I started working and eventually saved up enough money to move out on my own. At the age of 7, my parents went through a divorce, and when I became 17, my father began a relationship with my stepmother, Becca. Additionally, Becca had been married in the past. However, sadly, her spouse had passed away 6 years before the time that she began dating my father. Additionally, she had a daughter from a prior relationship and her name was Alexa, and she was my stepsister, and she was 4 years younger than I was. I had a pretty strange feeling about Becca and Alexa when I first saw them. It seemed as though they were not pleased to have the opportunity to meet me. I didn't give it much attention because I believed it was possible that they were just shy. In spite of this, I found that the more time I spent with them, the less I believed they liked me. Not only did Becca and Alexa move in with us after a year of dating, but that was also the year that I moved out to complete my undergraduate education. When I was at home, I didn't spend a lot of time with them. Only when I returned home for the holidays would I have the opportunity to spend time with my family. Whenever I returned, they would behave in a really peculiar manner when they were near me. Despite the fact that they were married when I was in my second year of college, they did not appear to have any feelings for me on any level. It was as if they did not appreciate my presence, and they appeared to be more happy when it was just them and my father. I am not sure how to put it into words exactly, but it would appear that they did not like my presence. Because I didn't want to be living in a household where I was constantly made to feel unwelcome, I decided to have a conversation with my father about this matter after I had graduated and moved back in with the idea of staying at home in order to save some money before moving out permanently. However, when I brought it up with him, he told me that I was simply making it up and that Becca and Alexa loved me far more than I thought they did. I made the decision to put my faith in what he was going to say and moved back in. Nevertheless, within a couple of weeks, he was shown to be incorrect. There is no doubt that they did not love me. In fact, they detested the presence of someone like me in their lives. Becca never showed any sign of warmth toward me and just occasionally acknowledged my existence. It appeared as though Alexa had a grudge against me, as she was persistently attempting to irritate me and pick arguments with me for no apparent reason. It was something that I brought up with my father on a few occasions, but due to the fact that their conduct around him was totally different, he believed that I was exaggerating the problem and that they were most likely simply growing used to having me around. This continued for a couple of months, and despite my best efforts to steer clear of them, they continued to make my life more challenging than it already was. I even stopped whining to my father about it at some point since I realized there was no purpose in continuing to do so. The only thing I wanted was to put away enough money so that I could finally move out. Becca and Alexa framed me for stealing Alexa's college savings, which has resulted in my being tossed out of my home in a manner that was rather rudely performed. Becca and Alexa were driving me crazy, and I really wanted to move out as soon as possible. One day, around midday, I left the house to go house searching with a number of my friends. I was looking for a new place to live because those two were driving me crazy. After I returned home in the evening, I saw that my father had already arrived. As soon as I walked into the house, he gave me the expression of being highly dissatisfied and instructed me to gather my belongings and go. The fact that I was unaware of what was taking place caused me to be taken aback. I asked him what was going on, and he responded by saying that he had never anticipated that I would turn out to be such a hopeless and desperate lowlife. He never imagined that I would go to such lengths for the sole purpose of obtaining financial gain. Despite the fact that I had no idea what he was talking about, tears began to well up in my eyes since the things that he was saying were so judgmental. Instead of making an effort to communicate with me, he informed me that he was unable to spare any time for my performance and required me to depart without delay. Following that, Becca entered the room and immediately began yelling at me for destroying Alexa's hopes and dreams. It was her assertion that I had done all of this because I was unable to bear the realization that my father had finally moved on with his life. During the time that she was yelling at me about what I was supposed to have done, I was able to piece together the scenario. On the surface, it seemed as though they were accusing me of stealing money from them, specifically a car that they had provided me for unexpected expenses but that I had instead utilized to make expensive expenditures. Becca stated that I had approached her a few weeks earlier, stating that I was running out of money, and as a result, she had added me to the account where she had stored money for Alexa due to financial constraints. Nevertheless, I had almost completely depleted the account, such that there was no money left over for Alexa's college expenses. The money that she had set aside for her daughter was used to purchase a number of new bags, shoes, and garments from high-end brands. It appears that I had lied about the reason I required the money and utilized it to purchase these items. Due to the fact that none of this had actually taken place, I was completely shocked, and she was lying through her teeth. Despite the fact that I requested that she provide me with evidence to back up all of this, my father informed me that there was no need to do so because they had already searched through my room a couple of hours ago and discovered all they required to validate her account. He claimed that he had discovered all of the stuff that had been purchased with that card hidden away under my bed in a covert manner. When I told my father that Becca had never even added me to the card, he informed me that she had removed me after receiving a phone call from the bank that morning. This was because I would have known if she had added me to the card. Although it had taken a few hours to complete, it was over now. In response to my request that he call the bank authorities to verify this information, he informed me that he did not require any other evidence to be aware of the fact that his daughter was a thief and a repulsive individual. In spite of the fact that I exerted a great deal of effort to persuade him that Becca was lying, he did not trust me. At some point, I was forced to depart. Following that day, I did not communicate with my father in any way. He had demonstrated to me the things that were most important to him, and after the manner in which I had been insulted, I had no desire to communicate with him ever again. After moving into my first apartment, I stayed with a buddy for a few days before moving in here. There were a few months in which I had a difficult time making ends meet, but after that, I was able to make it on my own. At this point in my life, I am living a really wonderful life, and I even have plans to purchase my own home within the next few months. Over the course of 8 years, I have not had any kind of communication with my father, and I have avoided every family gathering that involves his side of the family like the plague because I have never wanted to really meet him. We have maintained communication with one another, and my mother had severed her relationship with my father at the same time that I did. This was due to the manner in which he had treated me. However, at this moment, she appears to be taking his side, which is the reason why I am perplexed. It was a few days ago when my father made his appearance at my residence. Because I was quite interested in hearing what he had to say, I decided to open the door and talk to him on the phone. The address was reportedly obtained by him from my mother, as he informed me. It was only lately that he discovered that my stepmother had fabricated the entire situation, and he stated that he was there to apologize to me for all that had happened previously. Alexa's education fund was something that she had hoped someone would pay for. She had been taking advantage of him for his money for a number of years, and he was completely unaware of it because he believed that he was only providing for his family. He wanted me to forgive him and give him a chance after he had just learned something from his in-laws. He wanted me to give him a chance. It would appear that Becca and her parents had a disagreement a few months ago, and they had lately contacted my father in order to inform him of the facts of the incident that led to my expulsion from the house. She had purchased all of those items for herself and her daughter, but she had strategically placed them in my room in order to frame me and give the impression that I was concealing something. This was exactly what I had expected. She even had her parents phone her pretending to be bank personnel in order to convince my father that she had in fact added me to the card. This was done only for the purpose of protecting her reputation. The actual reason she had done all of this was because she was the one who had used the college fund that her late husband had left for Alexa to pay for her education. She had done this by living a lavish lifestyle. In order to avoid giving the impression that she was a gold digger, she refrained from approaching my father with the request to pay for her costs. The fact that she believed my relationship with my father was going to stand in the way of their relationship was another reason why she detested me. Because of this, she had always had a negative opinion of me. That is how she came up with that plan. To get rid of me and to create a circumstance in which my father would be forced to offer to pay for Alexa's college expenses. On account of the fact that the plan was successful, She was able to accomplish two goals at once. During the course of 8 years, her parents had remained silent. On the other hand, as a result of their argument, they recently came to the conclusion that it was finally time to unearth some ancient bones and reveal the truth to my father. He disclosed to me that he had already initiated the process of filing for divorce from her a couple of weeks prior, with the assistance of his previous attorney. At this point, he had arrived to make amends with me. In his statement, he mentioned that he was aware that one of my friend's fathers was a well-known divorce attorney. He then requested that I perform my responsibility as his daughter by putting him in contact with my friend's father. A petition that was ridiculously biased in favor of one party had been drafted by Becca and her attorney. A second thing that my father asked me to do was to find a lawyer who would be willing to reduce his fees for him. As a result of the absurd nature of the situation, I ended up laughing in his face before I closed the door. It was hard for me to come up with the idea that he truly thought he could just drop by, apologize, and then ask for my assistance, expecting that everything would be normal again immediately. Clearly, I was not going to be of any assistance to him in any manner, shape or form. It would be necessary for him to make direct contact with my friend's father in order to hire him as a lawyer, and he would be responsible for paying the fee, just like everyone else. The fact that his previous attorney was unwilling to handle the case because it appeared to be too hard and wanted to retire was not something that I was concerned about. Following the act of shutting the door in his face, I instructed him to leave before I contacted the authorities. My mother phoned me after that to let me know that what I was doing was not appropriate. I had the impression that there was nothing further that could be said, but after that, she called me. I am very perplexed as to why she has suddenly taken a position of support for my father, but I became really enraged when she informed me that she did not agree with my decision to refrain from assisting him. It was her assertion that my father was a typical human being, just like the rest of us, and that everyone makes errors. It was unfair of me to hold him to an unattainable standard and to act as if it was unacceptable for him to make mistakes just due to the fact that he was my father. It was not that I had a problem with the fact that Dad had made a mistake by trusting his wife. Rather, the issue that I had a problem with was the fact that he had trusted his wife more than any other person, including me, his daughter. At the time that he kicked me out of the house, he referred to me as a nasty person and a desperate lowlife. I still haven't forgotten that he said those things. In spite of the fact that he had brought me up and had a direct familiarity with me, he believed that I was capable of committing such heinous acts. Not only did he come to apologize, but he also came to ask for my assistance, even after 8 years had passed. It is quite unlikely that he would have come forward to express his regrets if he had not required my assistance. It took him 8 years to recognize that he had made a mistake, and here he was, repeating exactly the kind of behavior that I had detested him for. I had loathed him for it. I made an effort to explain this to my mother, but she just couldn't seem to get past the fact that he had accepted responsibility for his actions, regardless of how late it was, and that this was significant. As an alternative to behaving in this manner, she said that I should forgive him and present myself as a more mature individual since I should most certainly assist him. The truth is, even if I wanted to, I don't believe I would be able to assist him in any way. I am a friend of his attorney, and I am very certain that I will be able to ask him to talk to his father and collaborate with my father. But I do not believe that I will be able to persuade them to reduce the price of their services. The most qualified divorce attorney in the area does not come at a low cost. Therefore, why would I even want to commit to something that I'm not even sure I could accomplish? Because of this, my mother and I ended up having a heated discussion about it for approximately 30 minutes, and by the time the phone call was over, we were both feeling very aggravated with each other. On the other hand, she simply refused to view things from my perspective, and I was unable to comprehend what she was talking about since I did not believe that she made any sense. At this point, we are also not communicating with one another, and I am pondering whether or not I made a mistake in this regard. Though I don't believe that what I did with my father was particularly inappropriate, the response that I received from my mother is leading me to believe otherwise. I'm not sure if I made the right decision when I declined to assist my estranged father in the divorce proceedings. Consequently, I have made the decision that I will not interact with either of my parents. Following the manner in which my father dealt with me, I do not owe him anything. You guys in the comments are absolutely correct. The fact that he apologized to me a few weeks after discovering the truth is evidence that he would not have apologized if he did not require my assistance. He apologized literally weeks after discovering the truth. I would like to express my gratitude to everyone who left a comment. I really needed it. Regarding my mother, I am not really sure what has gotten into her or why she is siding with my father after such a long period of time during which she has not communicated with him. On the other hand, I am not very interested in learning what is going on. During our conversation, I inquired as to whether or not she was in contact with my father and whether or not she was talking to him. She responded with a negative. It was revealed to me that she had not communicated with my father for the past 8 years, following the fact that I had been expelled from the boarding house. Nevertheless, he was the one who had attempted to get in touch with her on the day that I had slammed the door shut squarely in his face. She explained to me that he had been crying, which was the reason why she had chosen to listen to what he had to say. My father is not exactly a particularly emotional man, and it is quite difficult to make him weep, so she wanted to know what was going on that had caused him to contact her. She wanted to know what was going on. She was able to learn the truth about what had transpired when he attempted to apologize to me in this manner. In addition to that, she had not communicated with him in the past 8 years till that point. Considering that she was in the exact same position as I was at the time, I find it difficult to believe that. It would be more challenging for her to forgive him as a result of the divorce that occurred between my parents. They were really good friends, and I think that this event has brought them back together, or whatever has brought them back together. No matter what it is, the response of my mother has made me realize that she doesn't know me as well as I had previously believed she did, and she most certainly does not comprehend what I am saying. In the event that she had, she would not have become angry with me for not immediately forgiving my former father. Whatever the case may be, I'm going to avoid both of them as much as possible. It is not going to be all that tough for me to refrain from communicating with my father because I have been doing so for the past 8 years already. On the other hand, it is going to be very challenging for me to avoid interacting with my mother. Over the course of a number of years, she has been the only family that I have ever known, and now I have unfortunately lost her as well. Despite the fact that I feel terrible about it, there is not much that I can do about it. I will give her a week to apologize for what she said and how she responded to it. I will give her that time. In the event that she comes to her senses within that time frame, then that would be fantastic. However, if she does not, I am at a loss for what I will do. After that, I might have to cut her off forever, and the entire idea of doing so makes me feel a great deal of sadness. Nonetheless, I am unable to stop myself from doing so. It is also necessary for me to watch out for myself. Update 2. Alright, 1 week hasn't yet passed, but my mother did get in touch with me. Regretfully, it was not to atone. I wanted to test if she would talk to me, so I hadn't blocked her on anything. She did. She believed it would be better to personally clear the air, hence she texted me yesterday asking whether she could visit me and have a personal conversation with me. Since I wanted to straighten things out with her as well and I honestly felt she would apologize, I agreed to let her visit. I therefore treated her quite kindly and everything when she came around. She began by saying she had been considering our last chat and perhaps she hadn't tried to understand me that well, so she was here to give that conversation another go. She asked me to say the same things, which seemed a little strange, but I did it hoping it would help her understand where I was coming from and maybe she would find it simpler to apologize to me so we could call this once and for good. After I finished expressing my emotions about this whole matter, though, Mom informed me she wanted me to have the same conversation with my father now that we had coolly gone over this. She understood my dad needed an explanation for everything and I could respond with respect instead of slamming doors closed. He persuaded Becca to do the same, even though he had believed I had taken her money. He did not call the cops on me. It makes no difference that everything was made up. What counts is that he made every effort to shield me even though he believed I had done the wrong thing. I might so provide him an opportunity to speak with me at least. She would not say no since she knew her daughter had been raised to be kind at heart. But I told her I had no forgiveness in my heart for my father and she did not know me as well as she believed she did. In the past, he treated me like garbage. I have nothing to owe him. Not even an apology. Her not apologizing to me even after all of this infuriated me. I thus advised her to only get in touch with me should she like to apologize following this. I wanted no communication with her otherwise. She then became fidgety and advised me not to act this way as family is all we have at the end of the day. Our life will be horrible if we cannot even rely on them to pardon our mistakes. I asked her to leave as I felt it was just a lot of BS and told her I did not want to talk to her or address this anymore. She told me at last that she cannot leave as she had promised my father she would get me to speak to him. She couldn't go as she had to live up to her promises, unless I told her I would talk to him at least once. She truly wanted me to get things out with my dad. She said she was truly sorry I felt that both my parents had let me down, but ultimately they were my parents and I should forgive them. She said she did not want to lose me. That counts for something since the few mistakes they made were negligible compared to all they had done well in the past. Her even stating that seemed absurd to me. It was her error, I informed her, that she had promised my father she could not even know she could live up to, and it was not my duty to see she kept her word. Once more, I urged her to go, but then she told me she cannot since my dad was waiting to be summoned inside from outside in the car. She wanted not to disappoint him. I at last snapped and began to yell at my mother. This was violated really seriously. She had taken the liberty of bringing my father here, confident she could sway my opinion, but I had made it quite obvious to her I did not want to talk to him. I naturally lost my cool and began yelling at her. I said I was done with her and that she was a horrible mother. She started crying, but it made no difference to me since I was enraged. She kept saying she was sorry about all of this, but I simply kept begging her to leave. I was not in the mood to hear it. After around 15 minutes of dispute, she at last went. I screamed at her as she was leaving and warned her that I would call the cops on her or my father should they ever return. I blocked her then, and I believe I should discuss with a lawyer obtaining a protective order against these individuals should they choose to pay me another visit. Update 3. Alright, so something literally crazy occurred today and I have no idea how to approach anyone about it. I am here to discuss this since I truly need to get this off my mind. Having a day off, I stayed at home today and intended to do nothing. Then Becca and Alexa arrived, and that is not even the most wild aspect of what transpired today. I became enraged when I found they were standing outside my door. I advised them to leave right away, and I even called the cops number. Becca, however, informed me she was there to tell me the truth about my father and specifically why he needed my help, not to bother me. It was good to know she hadn't changed in 8 years. She was exactly as unpleasant and rude as before. Originally I had no desire in talking to her, so I told her whatever she had to say, I was not interested. She then remarked, however, that if I understood what she was here to tell me and could explain why my mother had been abruptly on my dad's side following years of silence, I would most definitely be intrigued. Apparently, I'm not going to lie. That surprised me since I assumed she would not know about any of this. After some thought, I asked her in as I truly wanted to know what was going on. She insisted though, that she was merely coming to tell me the truth and would be leaving without even entering my house. Her daughter told me that a few weeks ago her parents had told her father the truth about the incident that had happened 8 years ago just outside my door. They started a furious argument about it and he resolved to file for divorce. She had been arguing with her parents since she stopped monthly paying them money as she used to. She became a little too avaricious, in case someone wanted to know exactly what they had been fighting over. Even my father wasn't providing the kind of allowance she desired. She started some investigation after her father had decreased her allowance without explanation and discovered that my dad was seeing my mother. She understood he had been conserving money as he most likely intended to be leaving her. She thus chose to remain with him and subsequently apply for a divorce under her own terms finally. But her dad discovered the truth before she could act, therefore their whole conflict took place. They both discovered their own actual hues. Under normal conditions, my dad could have easily ended our marriage without handing Becca anything. But Becca had not worked in the past 10 years, and since he had also been cheating and disloyal to her, she wrote up a petition that would help her. He was not comfortable with that, hence they were battling valiantly. She was telling me all of this because, apparently, my father had threatened her on the phone a few days ago and advised her to back off since I was supposed to forward him to the divorce attorney and subsequently she would be screwed. He was obviously lying, but Becca wanted not to take that chance. She had come to tell me the truth. Though in a sense I was relieved that I at last had an explanation for why my mother had been acting so strangely about my father, I was genuinely stunned that all of this was occurring. Becca said it was up to me whether I wanted to help my dad or not once she had told me everything. She then walked away. She had been of some real benefit to me for the first time in her life, and I'm appreciative of that. I will never be able to maintain contact with my parents once again after this either. It astounds me that my mother tried to gaslight me into thinking my dad deserved a second shot for her own self-serving needs. My parents most certainly fit each other. They are a match made in heaven. Not being in their life anymore makes me happy. Now that I live alone, I would like to thank my lucky stars for having the wise decision not to give any of them another chance. Update 4. Hi, many wanted to know how things were doing with me since I last blogged here some few months ago. I'm really pleased on my own. It's been going rather well. Though I do miss my mother sometimes, I remind myself of how she deceived me and it helps me to cope with her absence a little bit. A few relatives told me that my dad is now back with my mother once more. His divorce was settled a few weeks ago. I'm not very interested in understanding exactly what he lost in the divorce either. A few of my cousins have been invited to the couple's wedding in a few weeks. Though I don't really care, they wanted me to know about it in case I wanted to show up and straighten things out with them. I most definitely want nothing right with them. Right now, life is as it should be. I'm happier and better off living alone. So I'm really satisfied. Fiancé's graduation party exposes dealbreaker, LGBTQ plus acceptance splits 4-year relationship. We met in college and decided to not get married until we graduated to focus on our studies, and we have been dating for 4 years. He proposed to me during his last semester of his master's program, and he is studying to become a teacher. I graduated with my bachelor's not too long ago, but his graduation party is showing a side of him that I believe to be a deal breaker. His graduation party will be held at his father's house, which has a pretty big backyard, and many of the people from our wedding will be going. However, unlike our wedding invitation list, he said he didn't want to invite Jason, fake name, and his parents because he recently came out as gay, and that led to a conversation. Jason and his parents were invited to our wedding, so that made me ask why he didn't want them at the graduation. He said that the wedding was an us thing, and that he was willing to compromise because it was our wedding. But when it came to the graduation, he said it was a him thing because he was the one who graduated, so he didn't have to compromise, because he did the school work. When I asked what he meant by compromise, he said he'd tolerate Jason at our wedding because that's what couples do, but the graduation was about him. When I asked if he'd support potential future children that came out, he said he'd tolerate it for me, although he disagreed with it. It is my fault for not asking that question earlier before we became engaged, but he made his stance clear. He said he'd be more distant to a child that turned out to be gay and would probably let me do more of the parenting if so. He's always been a gentleman and amazing to me, but he grew up religious, parents were Christians, although he said he's not anymore. I don't think we have a future after he said he would distance himself from a child who came out and leave it to me, and I just want to ask how to tell him so. I'm thinking about another conversation like we had, but I want to ask for the best way to go about it. What would be the best way to tell him that I don't think we have a future together given his stance? First update. Reddit recovered June 11, 2023. A lot of people suggested talking to my fiancé in an open space or my parents' home about my deal breaker, but I wasn't able to do it at my parents' home, although I got to talk to them and they agreed with my reasoning. They said they were disturbed by how easily he admitted he would distance himself from a potentially gay child and that it was a good thing it came out before the wedding. I also got a lot of people calling me out for not broaching the topic of gay children or how he felt about LGBTQ in the years we dated, and that's on me for never thinking to bring up. Going forward, it will be something I ask early on before getting emotionally invested in a relationship. Because I couldn't speak to him at my parents' place, we ended up talking at a place we went for lunch, and I told him that I couldn't go forward in the relationship because he repeatedly said he wouldn't accept any children who came out. But when I said that, he didn't try to take it back and said that he was willing to compromise for me. He said it was better than pretending, to agree with coming out and that he was being honest, but I told him I was done because of his beliefs, and he didn't take it well. He took it fine at the restaurant and finished lunch without saying much else, and he kept saying I was overreacting and that he couldn't believe I wanted to end the relationship over him wanting to compromise. My parents have been helping me with canceling the wedding, but he took his spite online. He made a Facebook rant a few days after that, doubled down on a lot of the things he said, and he said he made it to explain his side of things. He said that I was breaking up with him despite him being honest about his willingness to compromise and not hiding it like many couples internalize things. He also said our country was changing things that were always wrong, such as gay rights, and he said that people were trying to shove gay rights down everyone's throats. He also said that you can't say anything these days because of canceled culture and Me Too catering to sensitive people. And he said that the value of education was dropping because people were becoming more stupid. He also said that that was why he wanted to become a teacher because there weren't enough good ones, and those were just a few of the things in his rant. He also said that Me Too enabled people from the consequences of their behavior, when they should instead look at themselves in the mirror and how they dress too. He never said anything about Me Too during the duration of our relationship or anything that was outspoken about gay rights until his graduation planning, and it was honestly surprising to read what he wrote. As I said above, I will be asking these questions at the start of dating going forward. Lastly, some people suggested reporting my ex-fiancé to the school in my previous post because they said he could be harmful to gay students, and I especially agree after the post he made. I did receive a lot of hateful DMs from people who agreed with my ex and said that I'd be wrong to contact the school. Some even accused me of considering canceling him in DMs and a few comments on my last post, but I don't see it as that. I see calling the school as something that's important because this mindset is harmful to so many, and he is already a substitute teacher at an elementary school. He began subbing before he graduated. I want to ask what would be the best way to go about it. Whether that would be an email, phone call, or potential visit to do it in person. I have already screenshotted the post he made, and I've only answered questions about the breakup from people who have called so far. My parents are helping me with some people who have called them too, but that is my last. Second update, August 20th, 2023. I didn't really plan to make another post, but I received a lot more DMs after my update was shared that made me want to come back, and I read through many of the comments there too, which made me want to address something. To those who called me out for not seeing any signs of his homophobia earlier. You're absolutely right. I just assumed the best and never thought to question it, but I will now ask the tough questions going forward at the beginning of future relationships, such as political stances along with opinions on race and gender, and that should help prevent time from being wasted on people similar to my ex. I just assumed the best because we have another friend who is trans and was always cool with him, and my ex used to like the post that he made when he came out some years back. He also liked a post that he shared at a Pride walk, so there was that too. Going forward, I won't assume anymore because at the end of the day, a like really doesn't mean anything. I sent an email with an attachment of his now deleted Facebook rant to a few places. The school he subs at was subbing at before he graduated, and the school district along with the county office of education where we live, thanks to advice provided by a commenter who I DM'd for more advice. I also told people I knew about why we were breaking up and showed them the post, and that did most of the talking for me. I broke up with my ex before contacting the school, and I decided on a text because we didn't live together and also had my dad return the ring to his parents' home where he gave it to his mom and had minimal interaction. I was too scared/cowardly to do it myself, so I took them on their offer to drop it off for me. In the text, I told him that I couldn't marry him due to his homophobic comments and opinion, along with telling him that my parents would drop off the ring so that it was in writing, and I blocked him after sending. He didn't have any belongings at my place, but he's been livid about the way I handled it, and I'll admit that I was afraid to do it face to face because I was a coward, but he took to Facebook again. He made another post talking about how dad returned the ring instead of me and that I didn't give him credit for being honest about his willingness to compromise, and proceeded to ghost him, pretty much erasing the purpose of his deleted post by referring to the same points. I'll admit that I was cowardly about how I handled it, but what really surprised me was when his dad took to Facebook about it too, and he accused me of canceling him for an opinion he shared, along with saying that communication in marriage is dead. He called me reader_Ed in his post and that people like me were the reason Trump lost, because no one had morals. He also said that Trump needed to win again to stop canceling culture, because his son was punished for his opinion. I want to remind you that my ex was not religious despite his parents being big Christians, but I'm guessing he vented to them about it and is back involved in some way given the post. The last thing I'll say is this, and I kept it to the end because I'm not looking for advice, as I'm only taking it from a lawyer on this matter that my parents have helped me contact. My ex called my job and apparently told them that I had CP and that was why he left, and I don't know where he pulled that out of his ass from. I don't know if he talked about the emails I sent to the district involving his post, but my dad seems to think that it might be retaliation, although he's not sure, because it's only been a few weeks. He thinks it could be retaliation for my letter to the district or for ghosting him, but we're looking into a lawyer, as I was recently made aware of the accusation at my job when I was talked to, and that is where my focus lies. I'm not going to make any future posts because I've still received a lot of hateful DMs telling me that I was wrong to report him to the school, but I stand with my decision to do so. I really appreciate the advice I received and hope that at the least, telling the school will have done some good. Someone also suggested looking into LGBTQ things to support and give energy to, and I'll look into that once I'm past this job situation. Third update, September 9th, 2023. I said that last time was going to be my last post, but I really mean it with this one. Before I get into why though, I just want to say again that I'm sorry for not seeing his homophobia earlier. Many people have cursed at me in DMs asking how 4 years of dating never showed it, and I thought I apologized in my last post, but I kept getting those messages, so I just want to say again that I'm sorry and that going forward, I'll ask for political gender beliefs on the first date to not waste time with potentially hateful people. I'm just tired of being yelled at about it, and there have been some supportive comments too. But the majority of them are either calling me out for not seeing it or for wrongfully canceling him and agreeing with many of the points his father made in his Facebook rant. If the news was on TV as we were doing something, eating, my ex didn't voice his homophobia then as many asked. And when we talked about kids, it was wrong of me to not ask what he'd think if they came out. Lesson learned for next time. As previously mentioned, we also had a friend who came out, and he's very close to them and accepting. But with that out of the way, I'll get to why this is my last post aside from the majority of hateful DMs. My ex's dad hasn't stopped posting about me on Facebook, and it's all pretty much the same as canceling culture rants from last time and calling me a leftist, among other things. I have also received a number of social media DMs spouting similar hate to the DMs I received on Reddit, and I directly blame him and his dad for this. I mentioned last time that I was looking into a lawyer, and my parents have helped me with the search, which has been helpful because of how his dad continued. His dad posted my socials and home address to one of his Facebook posts, thus why I deleted my Instagram. And he said that he was going to cancel me back too. Another reason I contacted a lawyer was because I received a threatening DM, but that's the most I'm gonna go into specifics. I only received one of those, but it was enough to make me and my parents want to be on the safer side. And that's another reason why I'm done making these posts, because I want this whole thing to be over soon. I really appreciate the supportive DMs I received in the midst of the hateful ones, and I also appreciate the majority of supportive comments from Boru that were sent to me by someone in a DM too. I really hope the whole thing is over soon because it's been draining, but hopefully the lawyer can at least provide some peace of mind. Fourth update, January 27, 2024. I'm going to update the bottom of my post, instead of a new one, because of the sensitivity of what's happened the past few months. The past few months have been really tough, and the encouragement I've gotten from reading my story on Boru has helped more than I can express. Everyone there has been really supportive, so much to the point that I reread the comments for reassurance when I feel down sometimes. When I broke up with him and told the school about him, I didn't know the next few months would be so tough, so I need to vent to get it out because things have been stressful. When I mentioned how my ex's father has been posting about me on Facebook in my previous posts, he posted my home address, and a link to my socials, in one of his rants, where he said he'd cancel me back for canceling his son. And that led to me, among other things, looking into a lawyer. However, I also moved back into my parents for a few reasons since my last post. Someone slashed my tires in front of my home at night, and to this day I don't know who. I have no proof that it's connected to him putting my address on Facebook, but I think it could have been. I also made a police report, but they didn't find who did it. I also mentioned in my last post that I was getting threats without going into specifics. But to be honest, some of them were DEA_H threats that gave me lots of anxiety. I'm guessing they could be from some of my ex's friends or his father's, but I also received a lot of messages on my socials, since his Facebook post where he linked my socials, that led to me deleting my socials, many cursing me out and calling me woke among other things. My Reddit posts were also picked up by numerous TikTok accounts that share Reddit stories with a video game playing in the background, and I was recently made aware of 3 of them that seemed to garner some attention, one with 80k views and a couple hundred comments. Another with 20k, and a fair bit of the comments were supportive of my ex. That also directed traffic back to my Reddit post that led to a few more hateful DMs since my last update, along with a fair bit of supportive ones too, so that was another wave of messages to go through. I have no quarrel with the videos themselves because many comments were supportive too, and the channels share other Reddit stories too. The fact that some commented in agreement with my ex doesn't make the video bad either, but was just a realization of homophobia. Some comments made fun of Jason for coming out while others said my ex was right to uninvited him. It's just been a lot, and I came back to get it off my chest. I know I'll get more hateful comments after updating, but I also want to say I don't regret what I did. My ex hid his homophobia. We had friends who came out who he supported, and he came to pride marches with them too. As many commented, the mask came off eventually. In regards to the CP accusations from my ex-father, child pornography, for those who were confused in the comments in my previous post where I didn't indicate, my parents helped hire a lawyer, but I won't go into specifics on that. All I'll say is that we're taking it seriously and are taking legal action against it. If anything comes from it, I'll share it in an update. The tire slashing and threats also did a number on my mental health, but it showed me some things too. The DMs also showed me just how ruthless people are, strangers who would never say such things to my face. I'm considering moving out of state, but I'm currently with my parents for safety reasons now. I especially appreciate reading the supportive comments DMs that aren't hateful because they really help, and I'm also with a therapist, but progress hasn't been great yet. There's a lot of mental health stuff I don't feel comfortable going into specifics about. It's been a lot of craziness, but I hope it calms down with time. Final update, made by OOP's parents. August 3, 2024. I have been in contact recently about something my husband and I wanted to share, and we asked if she would post it to Boru after they covered some of our daughter's updates. The person who made the previous updates was our daughter, and she shared the post with us as we tried to navigate her situation. Many of the comments from Boru were very supportive, and that is a big reason why I'm here today. The main reason, however, is because she committed suicide a few weeks ago and the funeral has already happened. We fully supported her decision to leave her ex after he showed colors we hadn't seen before. We were also in the process of receiving legal advice regarding the accusations that were made against her too. But even as we did, she was often overwhelmed and depressed. even to the point of not wanting to get out of bed sometimes or even eat on certain days. We were able to help her find a therapist, but there was so much going on all at once. From the death threats in DMs to the slashing of tires and her ex's father posting her address alongside one of his online rants, she ended up taking an unpaid leave of absence from her job shortly after the slashing to move in with us. Before that, her job also called her into the office to discuss the allegations made against her from her ex, and the culmination of everything was so overwhelming. Her ex and his father posted so much about her with no regards to doxing her, and we are in the process of pursuing them legally for the role they played in everything. Regarding her ex, he is still a teacher as of writing this. His father hasn't stopped attacking her online even after she passed, and we have documented everything he posted. We also told everyone who knew her how proud we were not only of her decision to break up, but also to ensure that his hatred wasn't spread to others by reporting his post to the district, and we owe thanks to the many Redditors who told her how to report it to the district. There were also some comments in DMs that said she brought backlash upon herself by reporting him, but we believe that she did the right thing and that she was braver than most might have been in her shoes. She could have done nothing and simply broke up with him, and no one would have batted an eye. She wasn't obliged to do anything else. But she felt convicted to care for kids she'd never meet. And if she prevented one kid from falling prey to his hatred, it is that much more worth it. For her sake, we are continuing to pursue her ex and his father legally. But we wanted to thank everyone who told her how to tell the district, because we need more people like her and you, and making this post is therapeutic in itself because we've told others how she did the right thing as well. We truly appreciate everyone who supported her and gave her advice. After my abusive husband's death, I'm forced to pretend he was a great man. Despite his mistreatment and affairs, I'm now free. My husband passed away 3 months ago. I was relieved of that. He abused me financially, mentally, and even physically. When I got pregnant, he convinced me to quit my job, saying that he would take care of me. I could never buy anything again without asking his permission. I couldn't even buy a cream without asking his permission, and he decided if I could or not. Even months ago that I had a little money of my own, I had to ask him for permission to buy something. What was mine was theirs and theirs was theirs. But I stayed there because I still loved him and I didn't have a place to go. I had too low self-esteem and let myself be stepped on. When I stopped loving him, he had already had his first affair. He made me believe that I was to blame for the affair because I didn't want to have sex months after my birth. That left me torn and I had to receive stitches. I was already planning my exit and saving money little by little while I was working selling things from home, since he wouldn't let me work outside because he was very jealous. I wanted to pay for a lawyer. He was having another affair with a friend of his, which luckily kept him busier, and I didn't care anymore that he didn't pay attention to me. I wanted him to stay as far away as possible. I knew that man and he knew me. I could have made a big fuss, but I didn't. I kept quiet, planning my way out while he and that man slept together in secret. I only felt disgusted by my husband, nothing more. But my husband died in a way I never would have expected. He is now a martyr. When someone dies, all the sins of that person disappear? Because that's what even my family thinks. Those who knew about his affair and how he manipulated me are now talking about how good a man he was, and we shouldn't insult someone who's dead. Everyone around me talks about how beautiful our relationship was. His family talks about what a great man he was and how he always focused on giving everything to me and our kid. His affair partner hugged me at the funeral, saying that my husband loved me. His friends told me what a great person he was. Everyone talks about how good but he was and how he is now an angel in heaven. And I have to pretend to be sad. The day he died, I cried a lot, but not out of sadness. I cried with relief and I felt free. It would have taken me too many years to save to pay for lawyers with my little store without him realizing that I was keeping money in secret. He would have kept everything. He would have made my life a hell, and I know it because he had told me so every time I stood for myself. But now I have the house, I have everything. I have the monthly money for being a widow. I have my children totally with me. I have started to become a psychologist. Everyone thinks that I do it to cope with my grief, but no, it is to overcome the abuse I suffered from him. It was really hard to pretend to be sad at the funeral, but I did it for my child. I did it because now everything is over and I'm free. If I made a fuss, my ex-mill would have done something so that I wouldn't keep anything. They were just like him. But now I'm just a sad widow who needs help in their eyes. The silly widow who didn't know anything, but that's helping me to be free and have what I deserve. Sorry for the bad English, I use the translator for many parts. Edit. We are not from an Islamic country, and here same-sex couples can live and marry freely. He just cheated on me with a man like he cheated on me with a woman. I guess he was bisexual. Am I the asshole for flipping out on my fiancé for canceling all the vegan food options from our wedding menu behind my back? My fiancé, 31 male, and I, 25 female, are getting married soon. There wasn't much that disagreed on during the wedding planning except for food. Me and my family are vegans, and there are so many reasons why we chose this lifestyle, and one of them being that we have a history of health issues. My fiancé and his family are the complete opposite. They're hardcore meat eaters, which is fine by me obviously. However, when deciding on the wedding food menu, I wanted to add 5 vegan options. My fiancé and his mom objected, saying it was a waste of money over food that isn't real food. They also argued that this would be offensive for their guests and suggested my vegan options just be the good old salads and appetizers. His mom wanted cupcakes, lol. I said no because for one, it's me and my family who's paying. And two, I want to make my guests feel welcome and not be treated as second-class citizens by being served salad. My fiancé made a face and said, "Isn't that what vegans eat?" I refused to argue about it and said it was final. The other day, I found out that he had canceled all the vegan options and took them off the menu completely and behind my back. I was seething. I called him at work, but he kept hanging up on me. I went straight to his workplace and confronted him there and just flipped out on him. He was stunned to see me. He at first said it was his mom's idea, then told me to go home because I was making a scene at the office. The fight continued at home and he defended himself by saying that I sort of made him resort to doing this after I kept brushing off his thoughts and input and refusing to accommodate his family. But there were plenty of meat options. Why can't I get 5 vegan options when I'm paying for it? He yelled that it was his wedding too, not my family's. My family said it was fine and they'll figure it out and told me to let it go, but I refused. AITA for putting my foot down on this. Verdict, not the asshole update, 1. So his mom messaged me earlier to try to get me to listen to what she had to say after I kept ignoring her phone calls. She spent long walls of text just to address what I did at her son's workplace, calling it all kinds of stuff from immature to unhinged. She then went on to explain how she's noticed that me and my family kept acting dismissive of her son's input and contributions to the wedding. She said that she noticed my behavior towards him and her entire family and wanted to speak up earlier but didn't and tried to keep the peace. She then went on to address the food menu issue and denied her involvement in the cancellation of the vegan option, but that didn't mean she doesn't support her son's decision. Moreover, she thought it was so irresponsible of him to make that move because of my continual refusal to see how this stuff is a waste of money. She also pointed out how I kept saying I paid for it, and said that technically this isn't just my money, it's mine and his because we're getting married. She suggested I wake up and get rid of my money, I paid for it, mentality. She finally mentioned how bad this whole situation is making me look and said that she and her son had already offered a number of compromises that I chose to brush off and decided to make it my weird hill to die on. She said that not only her son is upset but she and the family are as well after hearing about it and suggested I just agree on their compromise and be done with it. This pissed me off beyond belief. I responded by letting her know that I'm still standing my ground on this even if I'll have to call the whole wedding off because of it, because honestly, this is just ridiculous. It is. My mom and dad, they don't even know what to say anymore. Apparently, my fiancé saw my response to her, he's with her, and is now trying to call me, but right now I'm waiting on him to get home and see if he's still insisting on the stance he took. I'll update if there's anything worth adding after we talk. Relevant comments. Comment 1, NTA, are you sure you want to marry this man and his family? They have no respect at all for you and yours. OP, frankly, I have no idea why his mom feels so strongly about getting involved. I only included in wedding planning only because I respect her, but I guess it's like they say, give an inch, and they'll take a mile. Comment 2, info, how many options are there in total? So like 5 non-vegan and 5 vegan, meaning 8, 10 options for meals. Is this a buffet or restaurant reception? Or is this a multi-course menu and so there is essentially one vegan meal with 5 courses? NTA, because he did this behind your back without talking to you. But I'm wondering why he cares what other people eat. Also, he's the AH for claiming he doesn't know what vegans eat. You're vegan. He knows you eat more than salad. OP, aside from the vegan we have 6 options with meat. His mom picked 1. I'm paying for the whole thing. Comment 3, if you marry him, this is the rest of your life. He'll do whatever his mom says when it comes to your kids and managing your life. Update 2, so the talk didn't go well. I waited for him to come home so we could have a final conversation about it, but he still insisted on his stance. For more details, his family are a bit on the heavy side. Nothing wrong with that, they're perfectly within their right to decide how to live, but they get easily offended at the mention of the words weight and food. I tried so hard to focus on the issue at hand, but I noticed there was a pattern of this behavior. He said it wasn't true. and that this was just an attempt for me to throw past conflicts at him in order to win the current one. He claimed he tried to reason with me about why and how his guests might see those vegan options as offensive, also said that his family loved food and consider it a big deal, and how he didn't want his family to feel like there's certain options that they couldn't touch, and feel that there's difference in how I treat them versus how I treat my family. He then went on to explain how it's just an event and how my family should just accept what's on the menu, and if they felt inconvenienced, so what? It's just a one-time thing, they're not gonna die if they had salad and appetizers. What he said wasn't a good enough reason for me, cause his folks are gonna think and say what they want, but at the end of the day it's my wedding. And to be honest, realizing that my partner himself thinks it's okay to steamroll my opinions and decisions simply because he's prioritizing others and their opinions over me was really upsetting and not something that could be looked past. Normally, I'm a person of rational discussions and compromises. I'm all about compromises. I'd compromised on much bigger matters than just food, but like people said ... it quote s not about the food anymore. If it ever was. Like, he'd literally lose nothing if he let me have what I wanted, but apparently, he was willing to lose it all over this, which is fine by me. I gave him back the ring and called everything off. I just couldn't envision myself living like this any longer, having to walk on eggshells for his family and letting him basically override my opinions and have the final say no matter what. Marriage is about compromise, and here he has nothing to lose yet chose to do this to me and my family. Mind you, this is my first serious relationship and I didn't know what to expect, but it's safe to say that he and his mom and family did make it feel like I was taking crazy pills on many occasions, so that's that. Last thing he said was that I chose my family over him and ended everything for the sake of keeping him happy. Decision has been made and it's done. Just wanted to give an update to those who wanted it. Thank you so much for your endless stream of advice and support. Relevant comments. Comment 1, good for you. Marriage is about compromise, and it doesn't sound like your ex is interested in compromising, or even letting you have a say in things. That isn't a partnership. OP. Thank you. And you're right. Honestly. I felt kind of hesitant about posting an update. In fact, I was hesitant about posting my situation as a whole. Normally I'm not the time to share my private business online, but I was desperate. Like I said, there were times where his family made me feel like I was taking crazy pills. Honestly, and I'm gonna say this anyway, I hate them. They always made me feel like an outsider and a stranger. Never really warmed up to me and instead pretended to like me, but it was obvious they resented me. They claim that I'm a covert fat phobic, but in reality, I got mocked, along with my family, for being underweight due to health issues I'd mentioned before. Don't even get me started on ex-future Mill, though I feel as though I gotta let it all out and vent. Comment 2, you go girl. Dude 100% laid out a roadmap where only his opinion matters and yours is irrelevant. This probably wasn't the first time, but it for sure would not be the last. OP. Exactly. Like I said, I'd noticed a pattern of this behavior but kept rationalizing it, which was a huge mistake on my part. It's been utter torture trying to please him and his family. I'm an emotional mess right now, but there's this little voice of reassurance telling me I've gone through the worst and survived it. I'm so thankful this happened. It helped me see things clearer. Refusing my boyfriend's threesome request led to a wedding drama and a shocking revelation. Am I the asshole? This is a throwaway because too much identifying info is on my main page. IF29 met my boyfriend Michael M35 at a show I performed in. I am a theater person as a hobby, and he complimented my performance and bought me a drink. We have been together now for a little over a year. His sister got married last week and I was initially pleased to be asked to be a bridesmaid, but also a bit surprised as she barely knows me, but I thought this was an attempt to have an excuse to also get to know each other better. Michael and I got into an argument the week before because he said that he wanted to entertain the thought of spicing up our sex life and having a threesome. He said since I was bi, why not? I didn't like the idea too much and said so, and it devolved into a petty Cold War and he started to ignore my messages after he left my place. He didn't reply to me at all until the day before the wedding asking what time he needed to pick me up since we can't go separate, otherwise, people will gossip about us. He barely said anything to me the whole time we traveled to the venue. The wedding was fine, but at the reception he got me a plate and leaned in to kiss me, but I shied away and he got up to mingle. I started feeling ill not too long after and 911 was called. I realized I was having an allergic reaction but had my pen but still had to be carted off by the ambulance, and that's when someone who was looking for Michael said that he had left with some of the other groomsmen to a bar nearby. I called 6 times and texted that it was an emergency as I was getting checked out by the paramedics, and again when they strongly suggested I go to the hospital, but he never replied. I was released by the hospital and called him to ask him to pick me up, but he didn't pick up, so I woke up my best friend and she took me home and stayed with me overnight to make sure I was okay. The next morning Michael called me, but I was still asleep, so he left me a lengthy voicemail yelling at me that I ruined his sister's wedding and that I always have to make things about me. He came over to further berate me and told me he should just break up with me at this point as I'm dramatic and this is all too much, so I pointed out that he had gotten my plate, knew full well that I have a legit allergy to coconut, and that his sister had told me afterwards that he knew that the cake he gave me was the coconut cream cake, as all the food had signs saying what it was and what the ingredients were, as I'm not the only person with allergies that attended. He left telling me that he can't talk to me when I'm this way. I was honestly exhausted, so I didn't bother going after him. But his father called me to ask how I was doing, and after I answered he then told me how I'm hurting Michael's heart by blaming him, and Michael has been inconsolable since we fought. I texted Michael to ask if we could talk, but the conversation went back around somehow to the threesome and how I don't respect him even in intimate settings or want to hear him out regarding his needs and make things about me. I am so confused because to me this feels manipulative, but I respect his father so much. I go to their church and he is a pastor there. So to have him tell me I'm in the wrong threw me. Edit. A lot of comments are suggesting that this was intentional, and I have actually never considered he gave me something I'm allergic to on purpose, and certainly not to use against me to leverage in our argument. But I think I may have to come clean and talk to his parents. I know them well, so hopefully it won't go too badly. Small update. Michael texted me this morning to apologize. He said the wedding was stressing him out and he had a lot on his mind, so he accidentally handed me the plate he meant for himself, not the one for me. He said he didn't know I was in the hospital and felt bad he wasn't there for me, but he left the reception with some of the groomsmen to blow off much needed steam. I don't know how I feel about it all, so I just replied, okay. He is now asking to come over and talk this out in person. Second edit. For any and all of you calling me stupid or implying I am a child and why am I still with this guy, etc. Just know, you remind me a lot of him, of how he used to put me down and bully me, and it's a real wonder of mine if you treat people in your life like he did me. I suspect you do. Glad to be rid of him and indifferent about you. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Be honest, have you, now that you are looking back, seen red flags like this? This behavior likely didn't just show up. Have you ever gotten ill after a disagreement with him? Oddly enough, I am sitting with my BFF and she asked me the same question, and yes, actually. Our first real argument that I can remember, I was down with a stomach bug for almost a week and he visited me and made soup. Then the only big argument I can recall outside this one, he wanted to use labels really soon onto us going on some dates and I didn't, and the next morning, I was sick with chest pains and stomach cramps. I don't want to sound dramatic or accusatory, but since people have commented he might have purposefully given me something I'm allergic to, I just don't know anymore. Comment 2. NTA. The two of you are completely incompatible. He wants threesomes. You want to attend wedding receptions without leaving in an ambulance. Okay. When I read this, I was with Bestie and we've been drinking, and the scream I scrumptious laughing so hard nearly killed me more effectively than the coconut LMAO update 1. Well, many of you were right, I should not have met him in person, but I did. He took me out to lunch insisting he pay for it all, and it was incredibly over the top. He had flowers and a written letter of apology, but as some of you messaged me, his apologies dodged the point by way of "if I hurt you," or "that you're feeling X or Y feeling," etc. He quoted some scriptures and said he has repented as his carelessness caused me harm. I wasn't much moved by any of it until he said how much his family loves me and how much our church roots for us as a couple, and I kinda sat back and realized that one flimsy reason I was even entertaining forgiving him and staying was because of the pressure I dealt with as the GF of a pastor's son. It occurred to me that there were so many times I let things slide because he is the heir apparent, so he had the power in the social aspect of our community. Sorry, I know I'm rambling, but I'm emotional and tipsy. I remember just staring at him and saying it was incredibly alarming that by now he can't be aware of my one ingle allergy, and that he didn't bother to tell his own GF he was stepping out with the guys, or even that he was stepping out of his own sister's wedding at all. He then said it was really actually kind of stupid of me to eat a cake that had coconut, and implied I'm an idiot for not realizing what I had was coconut. I realized then he would never accept that he was in the wrong, and thus there was no point. I stood up and smiled and said, "You know what, don't worry about it. Thanks for dinner. Good night." To which he replied that if I wasn't going to grow up and accept his apology, I'm a waste of his time. He uses that a lot whenever we disagree, and it usually hurts me deeply, but this time it was like a Rolodex of memories flooded my brain, and I really suspect he's been deliberately making me sick whenever we disagree to teach me a lesson. I said I was done and he needn't waste his time with me from this point on and left. I then sent screenshots to his father explaining the situation as best I can without blaming Michael for prior illnesses without proof, and I got a text about 20 minutes ago from his father. His father is incredibly disappointed in my immaturity and hurt that I wouldn't even give it until Sunday at church where we can pray together, talk it out and heal. I felt this way for a while, but I was able to say at this time that using religion as a tool of guilt is low, and I am no longer concerned with his version of God, as that version is a judgmental, cruel, and heartless jerk, while the one I always thought of was loving, compassionate and kind, and I am done. I was told by him and by further emails that I am no longer welcome at my church until I reconcile with my true husband and learn compassion and respect for my leaders. So I guess that's it. I will enjoy sleeping in tomorrow and eating coconut-free food, while lazing about my home rather than going to 3 separate church services starting at 8 a.m. and then figure it all out from there. I don't know how to sign off, but I do watch a concerning amount of Charlotte Dobry videos, and she usually ends things with practical shit like, do your laundry or something. So I will just say, live for yourself, feed your soul and know you're enough. I certainly am going to put in the work to get there, and I hope we all make it to the other side, content and filled with love and joy. And by the way, F you, Michael. I know you are reading this. I know you know it's me, and I hope your socks are always just a little soggy. OP added in the comments. Here I forgot to add to my post, but I didn't want to bring the threesome requests into it. Well, I sent his daddy screenshots of some texts. If you'd like some drama, here are the top 2. It was the night I sent him home after he tried and failed to pressure me into sex. He told me that I was missing out and should be grateful since, your body makes me sick, but my love for you is stronger. Would it kill you to be grateful enough to just do a HJ? And on his birthday, I had just been in the hospital after passing out from exhaustion and dehydration and went straight to his party. I stayed at his place until everyone left, and I left soon after helping clean all but the kitchen, and he sent, you could have cleaned the kitchen then or stayed over for sex. Then you're a waste of time if I don't even get birthday sex. Thanks a lot. And after both B suggested adding a third. His dad hasn't responded. Relevant comments. Comment 1. Holy crap, and you stayed with him? You poor girl, no one deserves someone like that in their life, but you didn't say if you told his dad about him sending you to the hospital and potentially killing you. Because we both know, and the rest of Reddit knows, that he did that intentionally. And if there was proof of him giving you that cake, you could probably send his happy ass to jail. OP, I didn't and don't have the best self-esteem. And here is the only black woman in the town that I've known of. I've always known that I'm considered less desirable. Not saying that's right, but just knowing where I live. Been here since my preteen years. When Michael asked me out, it was like a parade. Everyone acted like it was a Cinderella story and I won a lottery or something. I have a friend who I have been texting today, and she is letting me know how dumb I've been. I never told her of our issues, and is about ready to commit crimes. LOL. I think I lost myself for a bit, but I wanted to leave the church low key for a while because of my treatment, so that helps a bit. Update 2. It has been a hot minute. I forgot about my posts until I was watching a YouTube video on Reddit stories, and the story reminded me that I never did update. I found a church in my city a bit more laid back, like we can go to the pub after and have a laid back laugh. I did like it and made amazing friends I am still in touch with, but the going to church idea came from my therapist, and it was to see if I do identify with the church or the ideals of it, and I don't. So now I am back to being the heathen I am. LOL. My ex quickly moved on and he had a new GF within a month of us breaking us. Bless that woman, I thought, because isn't she in for a ride? Oddly enough, she reached out to me on my Facebook and I was curious and opened it. She started with who she is, how long she and ex have been dating, and how long they knew each other. Childhood friends, so basically forever. She then said that she feels convicted by the Holy Ghost to seek a resolution between me and ex, and she is worried I may be his true wife. And if I cannot forgive, then I am proving I am not, and to let her know, as she cannot marry him until I make this clear. I shit you not. Seeing the screenshots, the chat with my new church buddies, my friends sent vomiting emojis, and that this is a cult and not a faith. I concluded they were right and replied with, yeah, marry him if that's what you want. And nothing more. I am getting messages from members of the church, but I don't much care. I've loved my life since leaving. I didn't know life could be so enjoyed really, and it makes me wonder how much damage the church had on me, but for now, just for fun, I am going to an appointment with a friend of a friend's apprentice on tarot readings. LOL. No, that's true. I was asked. No offense to anyone who believes in it, it's just not normally my thing, so I'm curious and interested. Maybe it will be good. I will know. My brother-in-law peed on my belongings for months. Discovering a horrifying family history of abuse destroyed my marriage. For months, my brother-in-law left me pee on my stuff. Finding out why revealed a terrible family background that shattered my marriage. For 10 years, Ted, 34M, my spouse and I, 29F, had been together. We dated all through and got early in college. I completed before him and spent a semester traveling while he was finishing so we might relocate to another state. He ended up needing to repeat several classes, hence when I returned we couldn't relocate yet. Since I had nowhere of my own, I moved in with Ted and his roommate Ash, 32M, as he was still in school. I made sure Ted approved it with Ash before we moved so my male cat could accompany us. Their dog was elderly, but Ash claimed he was good with it. About 3 weeks after we moved in, I began to notice that our bedroom smelled strongly of urine and we were unable to locate its source. I knew it wasn't my cat since she is toilet trained. The dog couldn't enter our room since it is on the second story and he suffers hip issues. I began to find clothing on the floor smelling like urine. When I asked Ted, he said he knew nothing. I questioned Ash if he was bringing the dog upstairs after 3 months of annoyance and this occurring around twice a week. No, he replied. I had had enough at this time. I stopped leaving garments anywhere, but I was still discovering pee and stuff like throw pillows, shoes and so forth. After breaking down one day, Ash proposed it was my cat claiming his territory, as male cats are notorious for doing. Since it was simply on my belongings and a new location, he felt it made sense. If any of you own cats, you're aware that their pee smells different from human pee. I put up a webcam in our room since I trust my cat completely. My boyfriend knew about my rent payment, therefore I reasoned this was the best method to find out where the pee was coming from. Ash was indeed walking into our room and pissing on my belongings. After seeing the movie, I packed my belongings and my cat and stayed with a friend until Ted graduated and we moved. Ted and I handled that, hence when all of this was happening I avoided facing him. Not really spoken to Ash since then. Though we usually avoid each other at family events, he was the best man at the wedding. Ash lost his job and housing with the epidemic and is quite broke. He wanted to move in with us, but I really don't want to since he left urine on my belongings. When it happened, he was a grown man, 25 years old. Their entire family is now calling and texting, telling me I'm an ass for leaving him homeless in the middle of an epidemic. Still, it wasn't their belongings that were left pee-stained on. Although he is losing his house and his cat deserves a home, I am harboring resentment since he left urine on my belongings. I cannot simply grab his pet and abandon him to the elements, it was made rather abundantly apparent. Although I know I'm justified, Ted claims he couldn't do that to his brother, and the employment situation is better here for his kind of work. First edit number 1. I appreciate all of you spending time to consider my present situation. I had to stop responding for a bit as I'm at work right now, but I'll get back to everyone in the morning. A few of questions have surfaced several times. He is in therapy? After Ted's mother made him go, he was last I checked. That's how we learned the reason he did this. Our best friends were Ash and Ted. Me entering Ted's life threatened enough for him to want to separate us. Clearly, it failed and it only caused Ted to go no contact temporarily. According to his therapist, Ash owed his brother apologies. My mother-in-law, the person who got them back in touch, said Ash asked for pardon for his deeds. I could deal with it as long as I didn't have to be with him and he never set foot in our house. They reunited. Why did he show up for the wedding? The celebration for our parents predominated when we were getting married. Although my parents planned a large wedding as I am the first of my sisters to be married, we were not bothered about the courthouse. We could not exclude Ted since all of his brothers and all of my sisters were bridesmaids and groomsmen. After all, Ted and Ash are best friends. I didn't care as long as I didn't have to snap selfies with him and he didn't deliver a speech. Why cannot any of his family accompany him? While the rest of the family resides on the West Coast, we live on the East Coast. After several comments, I'm beginning to question this next section, but I'll say it nonetheless as that's the facts I know. Ted's career is far more employable on the East Coast than on the West, thus going across would reduce his prospects of getting a new work in his sector. I am working to persuade every brother, there are 8 more, to contribute in a small amount so, between us all, he can stay there. Why would they find me to be an ass? His entire family forgives and lets go quite naturally. Things that are horrible to me, car theft, false college degrees, money theft, have been pardoned by them. They so truly believe that this was only a one-time occurrence and that has outgrown it. I simply need to get over it. Apologized, he asked? I find it somewhat sour that he apologized to Ted but not to me. Though you guys are right, it would be self-serving of him and a means of getting back into my house and maybe causing further problems. I was thinking of accepting an apology. Paid for the items he left behind? I just kept washing the urine-stained items as I had no idea where the pee was coming from. Following the video, I did toss anything I recall having been urinated on, that which had no emotional worth. Still, there are 2 pairs of damaged shoes in my house right now. He did not pay for the items I tossed, and to be honest, I never considered asking him. Should I merely cut my losses? On this, what is your husband's stance? Ted is the greatest human being in the universe. He really tolerates enough of my pranks to let Ash move in if it would make him happy. Ted was agitated and cut off totally as soon as things started. They made up though, as his mother mentioned the therapist thought it would enable him to atone. Ted has never once urged me to be with Ash or for him to visit our house. Ted assured me it was very fine if I turned Ash down as the best man when we got married. Still, I love him enough to handle him when it's called for, such around Christmas and major family gatherings. Are the videos visible to me? Though I regret to let you down, no. Though I'm annoyed as I could be at the man, I do respect privacy. I honestly wouldn't believe me if he told me one of my sisters was peeing on his belongings, hence when it happened I just gave it to Ted so he would believe me. To the best my knowledge, he has only given it to 2 of the elder brothers and his parents to prove we were not fabricating things. Curious as I am, I would want to thank you for your medals. They are beautiful and shiny and make me feel as though I recently came out victorious from the Olympics. You folks are the finest. I also want to thank you for the really great nicknames and jokes. I will be leaving him a litter box and puppy training pads in the guest room just to rub his nose in, should I lose this fight and he relocate here. You people are the best. I swear to reply to messages and comments as soon as I can. Edit number 2. Mini update. P has thus hit the fan in the family, and my day has been terrible. The family lacked the complete picture. Some of the other brothers saw this post and all of your comments. Not apparently did our brothers either. I'm way over my head, hence numbers 3, 4 and 8 are on their way here to handle it. The messages saying me I most likely had it coming, that I wanted it, or that I deserved it deserve a big F you. I wish the P-Man pays you a visit and stains your toothbrush. I appreciate your wonderful comments and worry. I appreciate the reality check references. I appreciate you waking me to my several flaws. Though things suck right now, hopefully in a few days I will be able to provide you guys closure or at least additional responses. Remain hydrated. Update 1, as you all advised, I showed Ted the post. Ted realized he had done wrong by me after reading some comments. Though I was cool with it, it was still improper of him and the entire family to be as they are. When the whole event happened, he sincerely apologized for not asking more from his brother, family, and self. Ash moving in with us was certainly not going to happen, he stated. He also inquired of various professional acquaintances whether Ash could get work as an engineer. One of those contacts turned out to be someone employed by the same company Ash did. He informed Ted Ash hadn't been sacked, he had quit but was welcome to have his job returned. Ted went to face Ash about this. We reside some many hours apart. It brings me joy, not because my husband is lacking in any kind. Ted found some stuff that started a chain of events and truth unveilings that, to be honest, just make me sad more than anything else. While I was at work, I worked 2 jobs, one part-time during the day because I wanted to. Yes, I realize I'm being cowardly once more and should be furious, but right now I'm exhausted and want to sleep. But I believed I owed you guys closure since I had enough pleasant and nasty notes. Though right now I don't care. I'm most likely going to get trash for revealing all of this. This is a resumed but still somewhat long rendition of all that has occurred since my OP. B stands for brother of Ted. If I say wife #X, please refer to the number of the brother, not that any of them have multiple wives. B number 1, doctor with some type of military background, wife, 3 kids. B number 2, surgeon, wife, 2 dogs, and a bearded dragon. B number 3, engineer, fiance, and dog. B number 4, teacher and researcher, wife, 1 kid. B number 5, works in IT, not sure of details, wife. B number 6, doctor, single and ready to mingle. B number 7, chef, businessman, wife, 1 kid. B number 8, car sales, wife, 3 kids, fish. B number 9, Ted, wife and cat. B number 10, Ash. I went down with Ted to discuss all you highlighted. He really apologies, we vowed to do and be better and we sobbed together. His family is difficult, as you are now well know, and not rocking the boat became second nature to him. We both agreed to attend individual therapy. Should both therapists recommend couples therapy, we will also undergo couples therapy. To somewhat brighten me, he ordered a t-shirt bearing the most okayest human in the universe. Ted called his contacts anyhow and discovered Ash hadn't quit. Furious about all the fuss this is generating, he goes to face him. He behaves in his place, Ash is absent. Ted goes in anyhow and waits since he carries an emergency key. Eventually he has to use the guest bathroom, but it is locked. So he enters his room and discovers a situation. This was the word he used to describe it. He told me to remain home, called me, and claimed he would be home later since he had to engage his family and wanted not to subject me to more than he already had, which had me thinking the worst. I was terrified at that moment and implored him to come back soon and be careful. About 2 hours later, wife number 8 calls me sobbing to check on me. I say Ted told me briefly about the circumstances. I haven't heard since. I asked her whether I wanted to know, which I did, and she begins by apologizing and then says they didn't know the complete story. After reading my post, B number 5 called B number 7 to voice disapproval of me distributing the story online. Apparently, he knew it was our family since having your stuff pee on isn't common enough. B number 7 then states there are several things about my account of events that sound off to him. By now they've all read it. He calls B number 2, who calls their mother. I did miss calls from B number 6 and B number 2 as I was working. Still, as many of you suspected, Ash's tale had a flimsy therapist component. It turns out that the therapist he had been visiting was a buddy of his with zero genuine expertise and merely claimed to be his therapist so his mother would be off his back about it. For approximately 3 years, he pretended to be attending therapy, which his mother paid for. When my MIL discovered it, she kept it under wraps and claimed to have forgiven other brothers for worse. All of this came to light when B number 2 questioned her about Ash's refusal to apologize to me. They were under the mistaken notion that he had apologized and I had forgiven him, because I have a history of being a doormat, and he was best man, which is why they were pressuring him to live with us. They also had no idea the territorial dispute had been ongoing for months. They were aware of a few incidents, but not as many as there were. Back to wife number 8. She informs me that B numbers 3, 4 and 8 are on their way because Ted requested assistance, which frightened me out. She tells me to talk to wife number 1 because she needs some help. I hang up and Ted has been calling me while I was on the phone. He continued claiming he was sorry and that his brothers would take care of everything. So I simply told him to spit it out, that I had just spoken with wife number 8 and didn't have the patience to be kept in the dark. Apparently, Ash has some mental issues and despises me. He photographed me on his bathroom wall, which was smeared in pee and possibly other human fluids. He appears to have had some of B number 1's daughter, F14. I'm honestly not sure what she did to him to deserve this. Ted, disgusted and outraged, walks into his bedroom and discovers photo books on his nightstand that were meant to be at his parents' house. You can guess which photographs were cut out and scratched off. All of the comments about manic behavior were more realistic than I would have wanted, and he dropped out of disgust when he saw our yellow-stained wedding photo. He goes to get it and discovers the cat under the bed, scared and starving. When he coaxed her out, she was still covered in dried pee and other bodily fluids. At this point, B number 6 phones him because I did not answer. Ted tells him what he discovered, that Ash is not home, and that he had to take the cat to the clinic. B number 6 orders him to stay there till they figure out where Ash is. They begin calling each other. B number 1 is furious, threatening to murder him because of his daughter, which is why he didn't attend. Now that all of the brothers are aware, there are a variety of emotions running high, ranging from wrath to concern. They do not know where Ash is. Ted phones his mother to scold her for lying, covering up and reconciling them, despite the fact that she had no idea he was lying about the therapy when they were reunited. She cried and stated she knew B numbers 1 through 8 had plagued Ash when he was a child, and she had done nothing about it, failing as a parent. She claimed she was attempting to make amends by protecting him. When we got married, my mother-in-law was quite strict with Ash, and I assumed she was being protective. Later, Ted informed me that he recalled his mother questioning if it was a good idea to have him as best man, which we both overlooked as weird. She had always urged Ted to be involved in Ash's life, as she explained to him after their fight, claiming that the more present Ted was in his life, the more stable he was. She stated that she never told him since she did not want to put him under such pressure. Ted claimed that by the time she knew he was lying, he appeared to be in good health and had overcome his problems. After hanging up with his mother, he contacted me to apologize and tell me everything. I called out of my other job because I cannot go to work like this. I have a lot to think about, but I will keep you updated. I called Ted and informed him I was on my way since someone needed to care for the cat. He stated he didn't want me to see any of that, but I'm really worried about the cat. At this point I am just numb and want to feel helpful. About an hour into the drive, I received a notice from our Ring doorbell, which logs visitors to your door, and it was a delivery of sunflowers, Ted's favorite flower. He is quite confident in his manhood, so please do not turn this into a thing. I instructed the delivery person to read me the card. With this form of doorbell, you can communicate with the person at the door, and Ash said something along the lines of, OP did me dirty by sharing our difficulties publicly. Whatever results from that will be her responsibility. I've just broken down. I had to pull over and cry my heart out. I asked my neighbor to please take the flowers and throw them out. I emailed Ted a picture and then drove back to my sister's house because I honestly don't know what to do. I am so bewildered and everything is so twisted up. I had a large family before all of this happened, and I feel like I lost a lot of individuals I cared about and thought of as family. But even in my protected world, I can't see or justify what's going on right now. I do not want to lose my husband, and I'm concerned about the cat. I'm afraid Ashton will hurt himself or my spouse. I phoned wife number 1, and she is quite concerned for her daughter. I don't want her to feel terrified, but I can't soothe her since I'm also scared. I cognitively understand that none of this is my responsibility, but I am the link between everything that has happened, and I simply don't know what to do. I'm okay or as fine as anyone can be in this situation. Ted is with me at my parents' house. He brought me my cat, because having a cat on your lap makes life less miserable. Where should I start? You'll probably have 1,000 questions by now, and I'm not sure how to answer them because I've just been waiting to upload everything. Maybe I won't post it at all and leave you all guessing. I will admit that this scenario and some of the comments I've received have caused me to lose some trust in humanity, but I suppose that's part of what makes us human. You want to know what the worst aspect of all this is? I have actual PTSD, and I no longer phrase it in a weird way. Every time I hear someone pee, as in pee hitting the water, I get a feeling of dread in my chest, and the world turns a little staticky. Going to the bathroom on my own has been quite an adventure. I had my first therapy appointment, however. We, fortunately and tragically, live in a world where you can just throw money and make anything happen. Thank you, Daddy, for paying for the emergency shrink. That was an update on how I'm doing, as some of you have asked, but I'll get to the point and why you're all here. What happened to Ash following the flower delivery? I couldn't take it any longer and went back to my sister's. Ted quickly exited and approached me. B number 6 coordinates everything else. He is my favorite brother-in-law, and I don't care whether the others know. Most of them have been rubbish to me at some point or another, with number 10 certainly taking the cake. I haven't got the courage to inquire as to what will happen to Ashley. I believe he needs assistance above all else. B number 1 plainly disagrees, and I'm guessing he's attempting to get the police involved because his daughter is underage. I requested Ted to see the photos. B number 2 advised me to document everything, which I believed would be useful. It didn't. It merely sparked additional questions, but hey, I have a therapist who can help me work through them. Right now, I don't have anything further to say. I apologize for wasting your time, but I am sure this isn't done, and I will have more to say, maybe later, maybe tomorrow. They found Ash. B numbers 3, 4, and 8 showed up to his house, and he was present this time. Apparently, he had not seen Ted's presence and was unaware of the impending storm. Punches were thrown, yelling, more punches, and one trip to the ER later. Ash is now in a psychiatric hold being evaluated for a variety of issues. Ted's mother continues to try to contact him. I'm not sure if it's to apologize or to question about what's going on because, in general, everyone is upset with her, but I'm over her. I believe this is the hardest reality check a person could ever have, yet I have learned a great deal about people, trust, and families. Based on the facts we have, Ted's mother appears to have been correct. Ted's lack of active involvement in his brother's life is what caused this craziness. I guess the epidemic and our distance contributed to his demise. He'll have to deal with it using whatever coping mechanisms they supply him, because Ted has shut off almost half of his family, hopefully for good this time, because neither of us is going to get over this anytime soon. Ash's cat, regrettably, did not make it. That's something I'll always feel sorry about. She acquired a renal ailment that went undiagnosed during the last year and it was too late to save her while she was being abused and neglected. The vet stated that based on what he was hearing, because they were calling the police on B number 4 for animal abuse, and he had to explain some of the situation, she was not going to survive without suffering, so he chose to put her down. Apparently, the issue with B number 1's daughter stemmed from his harsh bullying when they were younger. He never had much touch with her. It was all about retaliating in the most effective way he knew. His daughter will undergo treatment just in case. I'm not sure what or how much they told her, but I believe they had to ask her questions about her interactions with Ash, and they would have had to explain why they were asking. That's about it. I am not leaving my husband. I am not peeing on anyone's property. I'm going to therapy, and I've made it clear to everyone that none of them will ever live with us for any reason. I don't mind if the Pope is with them. I just feel like I've lost that caring part of myself, and overall, I still haven't received that apology, but to be honest, I don't want it. Perhaps my therapist will persuade me otherwise. Or maybe it's for the best, but for now, I guess I'll just live with it as best I can. Update 2. The sequel. Hello everyone. I just wanted to thank you for the amazing amount of love and support I've received from internet strangers, all of the lovely notes, and overall, for your care for me and my family. I will start responding to messages soon, I promise. It's just been a difficult few of days. My therapist suggested writing to help me organize my feelings and understand what happened. And since some of you have expressed interest, I suppose this is as good a diary as any. I believed a post update might be a little easier to read for those who want to know what happened next in the P-Man drama. It's been nearly 2 weeks since I first opened the Pandora's box that is my husband's family, and you all know what happened. I will be eternally grateful to Reddit and all of you for pointing out that there were issues that needed to be addressed and investigated, even if it did wind up turning my life into a P-show. I'm not sure how the Twitter users ended up here, but I'd want to thank you everyone for your support. Many people ask the same questions, so here are the responses. My husband and brothers-in-law. Except for number 6, I don't think I'm capable of dealing with any of them right now. He has always been my favorite, and in general, we should have accepted his advice and isolated ourselves from the family. He has genuinely been the most supportive and apologetic throughout the ordeal. I did speak with number 1 and his wife to offer my assistance in any manner I could, but they graciously rejected, saying I had done enough. I'm not sure if they meant it backhandedly or honestly, but I'm still keeping a distance from them all. The majority of the other brothers apologized for everything. Some accepted responsibility for their roles in this messed up circumstance, while others acknowledged their previous transgressions. I believe this entire family will be financing the psychology industry for the foreseeable future. I did propose that everyone seek treatment because, while I initiated it, this is something that affects the entire family. My mother-in-law. Some compassionate Redditors pointed out that she had probably been manipulated and/or abused her entire life, which I don't refute or agree with, but I do know that she had a complicated existence. We will not communicate with her again till the end of time, after she called to chastise us for separating her family. Her statements went something like this. I've worked for years to get all of you together. I have forgiven all each of you has ever done. Speaking with my husband, and this is how you repay me, allowing a small thing to come in the way of our family. So there's that. Ted, my husband, is managing everything as well as he can. He is also in treatment, working through his emotions. He keeps apologizing, and I believe seeing what his closest friend did to me because of him will bother him for a while. We read all of your comments together, and while he appreciated his atonement, he doesn't believe he earned it. He believes he has years to make up for. He also informed me that he understood if I wanted to divorce him because he couldn't live knowing what his family had done to his wife. I gently rejected, because I still love him and understand that this is not his fault. We'll see how therapy works for him. Where is Ash now? He is still on psychiatric hold. He did ask to see Ted, which was a massive no-no, and Ted declined. He did send him a letter, however. I have no idea what it says, and I don't want to know, but Ted assured me that I'd never have to see him again. When it is deemed safe, he will be relocated to the West Coast, where the rest of his family can cope with him. We have washed our hands of him forever. Number 3 has been in charge of his care and he believes that relocating him far away from us is best for everyone. Ted and him have been discussing the doctor's reports, but I haven't wanted to inquire, which is fine. Many of you advised that we take a break. I resigned one of my jobs and have been working at my father's beach condo. Ted is using part of his vacation time, and his boss has been extremely accommodating. It's the middle of January, so it's not really pleasant outside, but looking at the water is relaxing, and being away from all of the chaos is good. I got a new phone so his family couldn't reach me anymore, and it's been great just the 3 of us. The cat follows me around for a few days. Future actions. I received a protective order. In the meantime, I'm not sure what safeguards number 1 is taking for his daughter. I do know he made her stop using social media. If future legal action is to be taken, it must come from them. We are also relocating. I'm not sure where to go, but neither of us feels like we're home anymore. We'll start looking for houses closer to my family in the coming weeks. What's behind door number 2? Sorry to disappoint you, but there were no human body parts or meat hooks in the closed restroom. There was more of what was discovered in the master bathroom. I don't believe he's a serial killer in the making, just profoundly psychologically disturbed, with bad coping methods and emotional relationships. But I'm not a professional and can't help him. I believe one Redditor made a very solid point regarding him hating women or seeing us as inferior, as he only did his thing with women, me, my niece, and Sonny, his cat. But again, I am not a professional, so I cannot comment further. How am I doing? Certain days have been better than others. I've been to therapy every other day. Thank you to the Redditors who suggested going to the restroom with headphones or a white noise machine. It was quite helpful. My sisters are taking turns visiting, so we'll have someone with us for a couple of hours in case we need anything. The backstory? Many people inquired about the bullying he experienced as a child to rationalize this type of catastrophe. So here is Ted's response to that. Growing up with 8 elder brothers makes you extremely open to criticism, comparisons, and expectations. Our brothers had many years when it was just them, and when the chance came to take it out on someone else, he was the most vulnerable. I'm not attempting to condone or defend anyone's behavior, but there were some things that even I couldn't keep him safe from. Now that I'm an adult, I can understand how messed up they were, and I'm sure my brothers can as well. We've all been fighting demons our entire lives. We did not have a supporting family. Everything was swept under the rug instead of being addressed. That caused us to grow up alienated from reality, what is appropriate, and what is healthy. Some of us have learned more through our marriages, occupations, and life experience. We all still have a lot to learn, but we can't undo the past. All we can do is admit our mistakes and shortcomings and strive to be better tomorrow. Miscellaneous. A few random items that came up. Why didn't anyone check on the cat? We had no reason to. Sunny, the cat, was not extremely gregarious, so when they video called during quarantine, it made sense not to see her. We did not go visit anyone during the pandemic, so we had no idea how things were going to be. Before the epidemic, he was fine, as was his house and cat. I'm not sure how we were expected to know any of this was happening or how we could have stopped it. I'm sorry I let an innocent cat down, and I'll be forever guilty for not being able to help her. What are the chances of having 10 boys, 3 of whom can quit everything and move to the other side of the country? There weren't always 10 boys. Regarding their dropping everything to come, I'm not sure what answer you want. That they recognized how chaotic the situation was. That their spouses could function without them for a few days. That they could take a day off from work and come. That their sibling requested for help and they were able to assist. I honestly don't know what you expect from me with such questions. Why didn't you see it coming? There have to be signs. You would have to ask their family, as you're aware that I am not on good terms with them at the moment. Ted maintains he didn't observe anything, but his perception may have been skewed due to their proximity, and he may have been unaware of it or assumed it was usual. So that's where my life is right now. I'm exhausted and depressed and things are still bad, but I have something to look forward to. A really wonderful therapist who keeps reassuring me that I'm well and secure and is teaching me how to be normal again. Sorry for the lengthy update. Please know that I appreciate all of your compassion and taking the time to read about my follies. I wish you all the best and know you'll always have a buddy here. When I'm ready to go back out into the world, I'd like to have more kind people in my life, including Ellie, Ted, and Tortilla the cat. Edit. I apologize for not being more clear about the 10 brothers thing. Apparently, I may have caused some confusion. I intended to add that there weren't always 10 sons. It is neither my family's or my tale to share. According to what I know, they had 3 sisters. 2 of them died when they were young due to health concerns. This explains why there is a gap between 1 and 8, followed by Ted and Ash. The other one is slightly more complex. She used to rank between 4th and 5th. Yes, I am aware that they had a large number of children, nonetheless they continue to reject contraception. Sorry about the confusion. Update 3, Tokyo Drift. Hello everyone. It's been almost 2 months since the disaster began, and I've just received several letters and comments requesting an update. As is customary, the majority of them were pleasant and beautiful. There are of course, exceptions, but at this stage in my life, I'm used to them and believe they're just part of online culture. First and foremost, I apologize for the delayed update. I know a lot of people are curious about what's happened to Ted's family, but I simply wanted some time to comprehend everything. But here I am, telling you yet another sad part of this story so you can all be at rest. I'd also want to greet the Facebook community. I appreciate folks telling me where they're coming from, because I had no idea the power of Reddit until I wrote my first post. Anyway, Ted begged for some time apart. He is going through a lot of things and has a lot of feelings, which are exacerbated by my presence. He carries a lot of guilt, and opening so many closets and confronting skeletons is a lot to ask of anyone. We are not officially divorced, but we are not looking for a new home together either. We are still in the process of selling our old home, so he has been staying there while I have been staying with my parents. I'm not sure what will happen once the sale of our house is completed, or what he intends to do, but I promised him space, so there's that. He did give me permission to inform you all because, despite some unpleasant messages and comments, the most of you are extremely kind and helpful. Here's Ted's updated family tree. Counting the sisters, B stands for brother of Ted and S stands for sister. B number 1, doctor with some type of military background. Wife, 3 kids. B number 2, surgeon, wife, 2 dogs and a bearded dragon. B number 3, engineer, fiancé, and dog. B number 4, teacher and researcher, wife, 1 kid. S number 1, B number 5, works in AITA, not sure of details, wife. B number 6, doctor, single and ready to mingle. B number 7, chef, businessman, wife, 1 kid. B number 8, car sales, wife, 3 kids. Number 2 and number 3, B number 9, Ted's ex-wife and cat. B number 10, Ash. I didn't just throw in the sisters to add some spice to my chaotic scenario. I'm sorry to disappoint, I didn't count them previously because, well, I don't want to offend anyone who has lost a family member, but I'm going by what I know about that family. All 3 sisters were born and died before Ted was even conceived. He's never mentioned having sisters in his life, therefore he just says he has brothers. To me and him, he does not have any sisters. You people are wild. The theories you developed, some more accurate than others, ranged from entirely rational to clearly delusional. However, based on what you and I know about this family, insanity runs in the family. No, they were not all murdered. Sisters number 2 and 3 were twins who died from a congenital defect. My apologies for stating genetic. I'm not sure why so many people assumed it was something only for women. Ted just knows that their lungs were not properly developed, or something like. As you are aware, I am not on speaking terms with his family and hence cannot ask any further questions. They died in the hospital a few weeks after birth, so none of the brothers could have harmed them. Sister number 1 died in a motorcycle accident caused by one of the brothers driving while intoxicated and underage. Why didn't I simply say it outright? Because it is none of my or your concern. It wasn't relevant to our circumstance, and I honestly believe that people deserve privacy. I'm not going to tell you which brother it was, so you can choose whichever fits your story best. Many people have asked about the nasty secrets that their mother forgave them for. I'll post the ones that I have permission to share. I'm not going to reveal which brother did what, simply number 7, because I've already disclosed it so there's no use in hiding it now. I simply copied and pasted the comment I made then. There are 10 brothers altogether. Brothers 1 through 4 are the classic older brothers, golden children, straight A students. Brothers age 5 and under were used to trying to meet the expectations established by the oldest 4. It was expected that every one of them excelled in a sport, received good grades, attended college on a scholarship, since paying for 10 children's college is difficult, and had a career. Brother number 7 did not want to. He is a great man. He simply felt it was unfair that his life was determined by competing against his brothers. So, after he graduated from high school, he stated that he was studying overseas to become a chef, but that his scholarship would only pay partial tuition and not room and board. His parents were ecstatic that their son was studying overseas to become a well-known worldwide chef. They said, okay, as long as you maintain good grades and cook us your specialty foods when you visit for vacations and such. So he relocated to New York with 4 roommates and pretended to have an international life. He doesn't use social media often, so he didn't need to prove anything. He merely had to make sure to phone his folks at times that made sense given the time difference. He didn't have to video call them because technology hadn't advanced far by then. He just made up some great stories to share during the holidays. He retained the money he received from his parents to pay for tuition and boarding and invested it in something that turned out to be quite profitable. So he moved back to the West Coast and announced that he was now managing eateries. It all came to light when one of the oldest brother's kids expressed her desire to attend the same school as brother number 7. She requested him to take her there and show her around. By that point, he had enough money that there weren't many penalties, but he still cooks Thanksgiving and Christmas meals since he cooks well. So here's what I know because Ted, their mother, or the brother in issue informed me they did it with no ramifications from their parents. Stealing and totaling at least 2 cars, same brother both times. Stealing a car, different brother. Leaving grandma alone for the week when they were supposed to care for her. Stealing and selling things from the house. Other brothers getting into fights that ended up with police involvement. Getting into fights that did not end up with police involvement but did end up with a trip to the hospital. Skipping school events like senior trips and pocketing the money. Public nudity, public indecency and public urination. I guess it does run in the family. One stalking incident ended up with a restraining order. There was plenty of underage drinking and driving under the influence. Where is the father? I last saw him in an urn in the living room of their mother's house, so hopefully he's still there. Growing up, he was an ass, a deeply chauvinist and abusive father and husband. He was a decent grandfather to his grandchildren, but if you have anything to say about it, bring it up with them. Why would you expose your children to such a nasty person? I don't have my own children. Ted's parents were, and still are, quite traditional, with looks being the most important thing to them. All they desired was a perfect family, complete with proud sons and lovely daughters. I'm not rationalizing anything, but their daughters' deaths had a significant impact on them and their families. Why did they have 2 more children after all that happened? They desperately desired another daughter and tried 2 more times before being unable to produce any more children. I'm not sure if they would have tried again, or if her inability to produce further children exacerbated the situation. What happened to Ashley? I do not know. I'd like to claim I don't know and don't care, but I do care as a human being. After therapy, I'm a little more empathetic, and I know he's sick. So I care and hope he is okay, able to recover and go forward. I simply want it would happen far away from me. I'm not sure if he's still institutionalized, but I have it on good authority that he's staying away from me. So that's it for that family. I hope this answers all of your questions concerning them. As always, a big thanks to B6 for being fantastic. He has been really supportive throughout everything, and in general, he is a nice person who is still single and looking to meet new people. When I told him I was updating again, he made sure I emphasized it. So if anyone on the West Coast is looking for a gorgeous doctor with a crazy dysfunctional family, he's the one. Tortilla has sincerely appreciated all of the love, affection, and appreciation. As I indicated in a previous remark, I apologize for not paying the cat tax, but right now I am not comfortable sharing images of anything, including Tortilla, with anyone. Nothing against you personally, just feeling uneasy after everything that has transpired. So I really apologize for that. Since I'm evading taxes, I'll tell you she's a black cat. She's named Tortilla because I'm not very good at cooking, and the first time I made Ted tacos, I completely forgot the tortillas were in the oven, and they got fully burned. As for me, everything sucks and will continue to suck for a while. Boo, that's just life. I had to quit my job after quitting my previous work, therefore I'm currently unemployed and freeloading at my parents'. But my father claims he doesn't mind, he just wants me to be okay, and I love him for that. It's good to have my sisters around, plus there are more kitties to play with. Tortilla, I am still in treatment, which is about all I can do with my life right now. On the plus side, I'm sure none of these cats have ever been groomed as frequently as they have in the last 2 weeks, so they're all exceptionally shiny and attractive. That's it for today. Sorry for the lengthy read. Update 4. Return to P-Town. I've written numerous updates over the course of the year, some while joyful, some while sad, and some while drunk, but I opted not to upload them in order to give you a suitable conclusion to the story. But I recognize that real life does not have a proper ending. There will always be more going on. Hopefully, this will be the end of it for all of us. And I will be able to go on, while you will be satisfied with how things have turned out thus far. I really hope you do. I also hope that writing this and giving it to you offers me the closure I need. I'm writing this update now because I'm in a good enough state to open up and relieve my guilt over the lack of updates. It's quite wonderful of most of you to check on me during the year. It's incredible to me that it's been over a year and there are still new letters and good comments in my inbox. I apologize for not responding sooner, but please know that I read each and every comment, and it warms my heart to know that there are so many wonderful people out there wishing a random stranger kindness. I'll admit that part of me is always frightened to write an update. Part of it stems from the real-life consequences of putting things online, such as being identified, which I have experienced. The second aspect is the finality of it. It's strange, but I feel like if I don't tell you about it, I can simply pretend it's not happening. It's not really healthy, as my therapist has pointed out. So I'm putting on my cat hair-covered big girl pants and confronting the reality. It's crazy to believe that this all began just a few days into the new year, and how close we are to doing it again. I recall spending New Year's Eve cuddled up on the couch with Ted and Tortilla, hoping that 2021 would be full of adventures and excitement. I guess I should watch my wishes for the future year. I'm not even sure what I'll do that day. Perhaps I'll pack Tortilla and we'll go on an adventure, as I don't intend to sit on the couch and reminisce over the past year. I can say though, that it was a very comfortable couch, and I miss it tremendously. I adore Ted. I believe a part of me will always adore him. I've spent such a lengthy and vital part of my life with him that it feels strange to be without him in my daily life. Short story. He asked for a divorce, so there you have it. It was as amicable a divorce as possible given our circumstances. We cried during the entire process. He called to ask for my pardon. I begged him not to leave me, but as much as it hurt, it was necessary for him to recuperate from everything that had happened. We are still buddies. We've been best friends for so long that even if that part of our relationship is locked off, we're still there for each other. I know you don't want to hear about my heartbreak. You probably want the latest gossip and juicy information. So I will give the facts I have. Just keep in mind that now that we've parted, I'm not privy to many details. I'll divide things into sections to make it simpler to read, but not in chronological order, just to keep things organized. My ex's family, B number 8, wife, 3 children, fish, and a cat. I haven't heard from them since the divorce, but I know they previously adopted a kitty named Bob. B number 7, wife and child. No idea. I haven't heard from them. I haven't asked. B-6 with his girlfriend. He is no longer single and ready to socialize. I'm overjoyed for him, and his new girlfriend is genuinely amazing. She is a fellow Redditor who has read the Pate saga and still loves him, despite his dysfunctional family. I've met them several times this year and she really is nice. Of course, they have their ups and downs, as well as conflicts with the other brothers, but they are doing well overall. B number 6 actually came to see me after Ted sought for a divorce. He hugged me and informed me that I would always be his little sister, regardless of whether I was married or not. It's been extremely heartbreaking to lose my husband and half of what I regarded to be my family, but I did get to keep a brother because I only have sisters. B-5 and his wife. He never liked me, and I finally figured out why. He's not very fond of Ted. As you are aware, the brothers were not particularly nice growing up, and it appears that number 5 was the worst of the bunch, and he disliked it when Ted stood up to him or defended Ash. He hasn't liked him since they were younger. I have had no interaction with him, nor do I intend to. B number 4, wife, child. They have remained largely unchanged, they were always friendly. B number 4 made certain that Ash was on all of the do not adopt lists at every shelter, shop, or vet in the area where they live. He claims that even if Ash does well for the rest of his life, he will not risk another cat or other animal going through the same ordeal if his mental health deteriorates. So at least I left that family with the confidence that future cats would be safe from Ash, which made me feel a little better. There's always the potential he'll get a stray or someone would adopt one for him, but B number 4 told me that he'd do all in his ability to prevent it from happening again. B number 3, his now wife and their dog got married when the saga began. They were only engaged at the time. It was a lovely ceremony, but I did not go despite the fact that both the bride and groom invited me and stated I should come because I was family. Ted asked me to come, but I didn't want to destroy any more family photos. I did, however, attend via Zoom, which is how I knew it was enjoyable. B-2, his wife, 2 pets, and a dragon. B number 2 was quite helpful when everything transpired and was among the first to take action. He apologized extensively to me, both for the initial pressure to let Ash move in and for what happened subsequently. He felt particularly sorry for his role in his brother's mental health. I thanked him for the first 2 apologies and informed him that the third one was not mine to accept. He was understanding and stated that he would concentrate on improving his family's ties and that it was unfair that I should bear the brunt of the consequences for something that was not my fault. After the divorce, he contacted me and said that if I needed anything, he would be there for me. Overall, it was a wonderful message, and I know he's also in therapy now, which is fantastic. B-1, his wife, and 3 children. As you know, B number 1 was the most offended by the entire scenario because it affected one of his daughters. Last you heard, they had requested me to remain away and give them some room. But his oldest daughter contacted me. She's a darling who told me she misses her life before everything happened. I did not inquire about what her parents told her, but I felt they had to tell her some version of events because she is old enough to ask the correct questions. He did not press charges, but they moved. Fortunately for daughter number 1, they moved to the East Coast, where she discovered an incredible culinary program that she is extremely enthused about. Daughter number 2, according to her sister, mother, and therapist, is doing quite well. Apparently, she never had much interaction with Ash outside of large family gatherings with others. He was taking his anger out on her because she is the spitting image of her father, not so much for her as an individual, but for who she represents and the fact that she is a woman. I'll go into that later. She is still in treatment, but she is very irritated about it, claiming that it has nothing to do with her and that she is distraught about having to move and leave all of her friends. Overall, B number 1's family is safe and adjusting to life on the East Coast, although they continue to keep a distance from me. They haven't liked the weather so far, but I have told daughter number 1 that she is welcome to come anytime. B number one's wife and I are friendly enough that she would let it. B number one and I haven't talked since everything went down. All communications have gone through his wife and daughters. The wicked boy. From the West. Some days, just for fun, I'll go into our SLJ Nomal and tell myself that mine wasn't as horrible as others. I'll see some and wish I had one whose worst behavior was to wear white to my wedding. We were never best friends, but she was not always mean to me. Living on the opposite side of the country created a barrier in our relationship that I believe we were both comfortable with. We didn't have much interaction with one another, and we were fine with it. She had so many other dills around who raised her grandchildren that I wasn't as significant to her. I continued to call her on her birthdays and anniversaries, and she always invited me over for the holidays. Whenever we went over the holidays, the house was always so full of people that I was just one more or one less, and I was fine with that. I believe that's when my doormating with this family began. I tried to be as helpful as possible and would do whatever to help, but it ultimately backfired on me. I believe the most time we ever spent together was during our wedding preparations. Our wedding was never significant to Ted or me. All we wanted was to be together. Our parents, on the other hand, were eager to have a large wedding. I'm the first of my sisters to marry, and given the age difference between Ted and his elder brothers, there hadn't been a huge occasion like this in a while. I have absolutely no regrets about marrying Ted. I could do without the large wedding though. I wish we could have married at the courthouse with just the two of us. Or perhaps gone to Vegas and been married by Elvis. I'm not sure if they still do that, but it seems just as, if not more memorable than a large 200-person wedding. I recall how happy she was when we eventually agreed on the big wedding. It was as if for the first time, I wasn't simply another dill in the pile. It's foolish, but it felt good to feel that I was finally allowed into the inner circle, even if it came at the expense of a lavish wedding. I attempted to involve her in the process as much as possible. With 10 sons, I assumed she didn't have many opportunities to do female things. She was sweet to me back then, possibly to get her way, and I was too naive to see. I stayed at the Golden Dill for a bit after that, I believe, until another granddaughter was born. Then I was relieved to be out of the spotlight, returning to our normal coexistence. It was exhausting to be on her side, with all of the expectations that come with it. It's weird to go back and remember how much I wanted her to like me, and now I'd do anything to keep her unaware of my presence. After Ash was admitted to a psych facility, she did everything she could to tear me down. I went to see her, along with the rest of the family, for a time, but eventually made apologies with some of them. Certainly not with her. I saw her once, when she arrived with some of the others to pack up Ash's place. She went to my parents' house solely to yell at me, which was terrible. The worst part was that she timed it so perfectly. My parents were at work, and my sisters were either at work or school. I was the only one sobbing on the other side of the door. I heard the doorbell and rushed to open it, only to see her. She didn't even try to be nice and just threw it all on me. She brought up everything I had ever done to her and her family. She told me I was a failure as a wife and that she hoped the divorce would ruin me. She stated she would make sure her son grabbed everything from me and that she would not stop until I was impoverished. She stated she was glad I was barren because she couldn't bear the thought of mixing her blood with mine. She said so many horrible things that day, but the last one was the most memorable. Ted and I were never trying to have children. But we weren't trying not to. We assumed we were steady enough that if it was meant to be, it would happen, but it never did. Does it make me an evil human being to be grateful that my parents' neighbors contacted the cops and removed her from the property? My sister discovered me sitting on the floor, crying with tortilla. She contacted Ted and I believe he heard the account from B number 5, who drove her. I never saw him. I haven't heard anything from her since. I'm not sure what Ted told her or what she told him. I only know that she has left me alone since that day and I am grateful for that. Ted is the universe's most decent ex-husband. I could tell you 1,000 things about Ted or none at all. It feels strange not to be with him, but I try to respect his wants and wishes. As you are aware, he sought a divorce from me on the grounds that, I cannot do this to you. I can never forgive myself for placing you in this situation. I do not want to expose you to my family again and allow them to damage you. I was irritated because he was making decisions for me without considering what I wanted for myself. But, after many long therapy sessions, I realized that while he claimed to be doing it to protect me, it was actually to protect himself. Or, at the very least, to alleviate his guilt. Perhaps not having me around made him feel as if nothing had happened. Or he honestly believed that this was the best option for me. It really sucks because I've always thought about what was best for us as a whole, not just myself and him. However, his solution was not to have a team. Some days I wake up loathing his name and shadow, while others I simply stare at my phone and contemplating phoning him. Sometimes I lose that battle and end up calling him. He always responds and assures me that he is there for me. Anyway, we sold our house and he moved out. He temporarily relocated to the West Coast to address family difficulties while his divorce was being conducted. He returned because his job was waiting for him, and he enjoys it. I'm not sure if I should be grateful that he's still living in the city that was once our home, or angry that he's ruined an entire city I like. It's unfortunate that every area I want to visit is packed with memories of him. Perhaps it is time for me to relocate and begin anew somewhere where no one is aware of my dark, tragic background. I'll tell you more about Ted's travels on the East Coast later. This section contains life updates. Some individuals expressed concern for him and sent him well wishes via comments and messages. I passed them forward, and he thanks me. I'll copy and paste a portion of the update I made but did not post the day he returned to town and invited me to meet. This is about your Redditors. I apologize in advance, it wasn't a good day. I never used Reddit much. I'm wondering where my life would be without you now. I probably would have allowed his family continue to doormat me, and who knows, maybe I'd be with Sunny right now, and Ash would have gotten all of his life's ambitions fulfilled. To this day, I still receive texts wishing us both well. A part of me wishes I didn't have to share you with him. Why does he deserve your best wishes while I'm the one who ended up alone? You are bigger and better people than me. I did tell him that you hoped he was okay. I'll admit that I told him partially to hurt him and make him feel guilty. Maybe I'll regret it later, but I simply needed him to feel anything other than sympathy for me. Do you know what the worst part is? He laughed. Even though it was a dead man's chuckle, I was concerned by the sound. It isn't fair that he gets to chuckle. He thanked you and expressed hope that one day he will be the man you believed he was or could be. He also apologized for disappointing you all and acknowledged that this is not the ending you had hoped for. Although some of you wished for this conclusion from the beginning, I'm not sure if you've changed your mind after all of the updates or if you still believe I should leave him. He has always preferred to be in control, so he left me alone. Aside from that, Ted is as good as he could be. He has good and terrible days, just like I do. We meet on a regular basis to check on each other. He informs me about his life and I tell him how I am doing. After his mother paid a visit to my parents' place, I moved out. I haven't asked him to my new apartment and I don't sure I want to. I believe having a house without memories of him or his family for the first time in a decade is just what I need right now. Tortilla misses him, but I try to convince myself that she understands my pain. I don't know where to start. And Ash was first committed following his dispute with his brothers, and B numbers 3, 4 and 8 arrived to assist sort things out. He stayed for a few weeks. During his visit, he repeatedly requested to see Ted, but he never did. However, he did once write him a letter. At the time, I didn't want to know what it stated, but I eventually asked Ted about it. He stated that he had written to tell him to stop asking to see him, that he needed to prioritize himself and his life over Ash for once, and that he should stop putting Ash's wants ahead of his own. After a few weeks, B number 3 arranged for his relocation to the West Coast. I'm not sure whether he was transported to another facility or released into their custody. Once that was completed, which took about 2 months, their mother, B number 5, and B number 7 arrived to pack up his flat and legally relocate him back west. As previously stated, I am unsure of the exact timeline, but he eventually moved in with their mother. B number 2 was in charge of overseeing his therapy, and I trust he will continue to do so. It was difficult for Ted to come over and express himself to his family. He first met with his brothers. I'm not sure if everyone was there, but based on what Ted told me, I believe the most involved were. B number 3 told them some of what he had discussed with his doctors while on the East Coast. He had treatment for a psychotic episode. I believe he's been in treatment since then. I'm not sure what the precise diagnosis is, but they discussed a lot of topics. They discussed their background and how their bullying affected Ash, how Ted's protectiveness fostered an unhealthy emotional relationship, and a few other topics came up. I'm not sure if these are the conclusions they reached, if they were told by Ash's therapist, or how they arrived, but this is what Ted told me when he returned. It was strange listening to him talk about it. He was so disconnected, as if he were speaking about someone else's family. But I suppose that's his method of digesting things. I do not know. Many of you have wondered what kind of bullying they may have done to cause him to behave this way. Ted answered a few of those questions for me. To maintain consistency, I will not tell you who did what. As usual, you can use your own brother to match your story. Just be aware that, while some brothers are contrite and regretful for their actions, it appears that others are not. Many of you also made suggestions about the type of torturing they did, with some being more accurate than others. Apart from your regular standardized bullying of punching, humiliating, mocking, tricking and insulting, there was also locking him in cabinets, stealing his clothes, leaving him outside all night long, locking all bathrooms so he'd have to wet himself, threatening with a variety of items and weapons, leaving him at places and making him walk miles to their house in a variety of weather, putting him in diapers, antagonizing him, tying him up and dragging him on ATVs through. I could continue, but you get the picture. I understand that some individuals don't get along with their siblings, and that bullying and sibling rivalry exist, but it looked so wicked when he described it. What could he have done to deserve this? I don't understand it. It doesn't excuse his actions, but it explains some of it. His dislike of women stems from a similar source. The common assumption is that he blames his mother for failing to protect him from all of this, which reinforces his perception of women as weak and useless. If his mother couldn't keep him safe from his own brothers, who could? I suppose his brothers didn't assist him with that growing up because they would isolate him from any girls that shown an interest in him. That's how his emotional bond with Ted began. He was the only one who stood up and defended him, but we all know how it ended, for now and hopefully forever. Ash is staying in the West. I am sorry I do not have more definitive answers for you. I'm sure many of you expected them, but I can't bring myself to ask any more questions. While this all began, while I was fresh out of school, I retained 2 pairs of sneakers from the PE event. I threw out the majority of the rest, but those 2 pairs, the first pair is irrelevant to you and the second were the first things I purchased with my own money from my very first internship while still in school, represented the very first step. As a result, shoes have contributed to my independence. Having to stop both of my jobs, move back in with my parents, and lose Ted sucked, and all I could think about were those shoes stowed in a box and how unjust it was that I had lost everything the shoes represented. I'm steadily rebuilding my life. The first steps will be to move into my new apartment and get a new job. I guess I'll wait and see what the future has in store for Tortilla and me. I haven't worn them since they were peed on, but maybe I will sometime when I feel more like myself. Happy holidays, Reddit. I'm not sure what mine will be like, but I hope yours is full of light and joy. Much love from my tattered heart, Ellie and Tortilla. The cat update, 5 PE and tell no tales. It's been a long since I was here. I even quit posting unpublished updates since I didn't want to worry about life or anything. How are you all doing? How is your new year going so far? I hope everyone has been happy and healthy, that all of your kitties have been petted and that your bladders are empty. I'll keep this update as short as possible. I've received a few comments and letters indicating that I write too much and take too long to get to the point, and I apologize for that. Although it is not my responsibility to keep you updated on my life, I am writing to express my gratitude for the outpouring of love and support from many Redditors, as well as those who have inquired about my well-being and requested updates. So, if it's too long for you, feel free to quit reading at any time. My story has no bearing on your life except for entertainment, so you can remain or leave and I'll be none the wiser. I last posted just before the holidays, and I'll admit that my holiday preparations were not the best in retrospect. I know I mentioned in my last update that I wouldn't sit on the couch and wallow in self-pity, but you can guess what I did. I was honestly not in the mood to celebrate. My family is very into Christmas and pleasure and joy, and I didn't want to dampen the spirit. So I told my father I was spending it with a friend who had just lost her husband. She traveled across the state to be with his folks, and I stayed at home with Tortilla, watching movies. Ted contacted me on Christmas Day and for the first time, I did not respond. Are you all incredibly proud of me? I knew you would be, after so many of you agreed that I should cut them off entirely. Please accept my baby steps. Even after everything that had transpired, I couldn't bring myself to give up on my best buddy. He texted me later in the day to check in and see if I was okay, claiming he had seen my sister's photos on Facebook and noted I wasn't there. Should I ask my sisters to block him? He loves them, and they love him. He was a fantastic guy before everything happened, and he's still doing his best now. I'm not sure if it's how I write, when I write, or if I'm influenced by our relationship, but Ted isn't as bad as some of you make him out to be. He is also going through a really terrible experience, and having to confront everything his family did is difficult. I waited on his text for a few hours, contemplating how to respond, and honestly came up empty-handed. I wasn't doing well, but overall, he's the one who knows me best. Our 10 years together were not wasted. We didn't end our relationship because we were no longer in love, but because it was best for us both. In some ways, you have a unique opportunity to read my updates. You are not the ones whose life were shattered and you moved from having a loving family to being absolutely alone. I had my family and you to rely on, but Ted didn't. Because of all of this, some of his brothers have developed a stronger dislike for him. He lost his greatest buddy and younger brother. He has lost his partner. He lost Tortilla as well, and while it's a relief, he also lost his mother. You only know my side of the story and the morsels I share with you, so it's easy to villainize him and think of him as a monster for hurting me. But he is still a human. He was also deeply hurt throughout the event, and he is human and bound to make mistakes. Even though I don't think our divorce will ever be considered a mistake by him, I ended up simply responding with something like, "Wasn't up for a party, so just stayed in with Tortilla. Merry Christmas." And I guess he realized something was wrong and came to my park. He is familiar with the general area where I live as well as the gorgeous park that I frequent, and he invited me to meet him, which I accepted. Yes, you can be less proud of my minor accomplishment that day, but again, baby steps. We spoke for several hours. I had no idea he was spending Christmas alone. Otherwise, I would have preferred to spend it with him, or at the absolute least, invite him to my parents'. Many of you have urged that cutting him off completely is the greatest option, but I disagree. I might alter my mind later, but for the time being, I believe we still need each other a little. Every day, I think I need him a little less, but that day, I needed him, and sometimes he needs me as well. I'd like to believe we can be friends, but I realize that in the long run, it might not be feasible. He'll eventually find another partner, and they're unlikely to like me. Or perhaps we will grow apart. Maybe one day I'll loathe him for what happened. But for the time being, he has benefited me in ways that others cannot. It may sound ridiculous from my perspective, but I don't believe anyone else genuinely understands who I am right now. I am not the same person I was before everything happened. I'm no longer the same person I was a year ago. Going through this with his family affected both of us dramatically, and not everyone understands why I'm not comfortable bringing children to the restroom or why I had to leave sick when my boss brought me sunflowers on International Women's Day. I believe we both lost aspects of ourselves that were perhaps a little too naive, and we've both matured in ways neither of us imagined, but which have helped to ground us. I've had a very fortunate and protected existence, and while I've lost part of the brightness that once filled me, I believe this new shade has helped me connect with people more and understand their hardships in a more empathic manner. Or at the very least, I would want to believe so. Perhaps that is just what going to therapy accomplishes for you. In that case, I strongly advise everyone, P or not, to go to therapy. Overall, I believe we are both doing a little better. Tortilla is doing well. Aside from a minor health scare, she is doing well as usual. Our new apartment has a lot of windows, which means there are plenty of sunny spots, which she is loving. Ted lost communication with the majority of his family and is currently in limited contact with B4 and B6. So I don't really have anything to say about Ash or the rest of the brothers, except for B6, who's quite sorry that Ted is keeping his distance from him, especially because he has cut off almost everyone. But he says he understands and will be there for him when he is ready. It was said several times that what was previously referred to as bullying was actually abuse, and I believe it is crucial to utilize that term when characterizing their childhood. I believe that part of the difficulty that led the House of Cards to collapse was the dismissive attitude of everyone involved, even Ted and Ash, who dismissed it as boys will be boys. Brothers are like that. Or simply I thought it was normal. I believe that if any of the spouses or I had known the scope of things in their youth, we might have made quite different decisions. Of course, my ex-mill bears a lot of responsibility for it, but I suppose we've all learnt from it. I don't think I'm ready to start dating yet. I believe I need to learn to be alone first. I've been with Ted since college, and it's been quite some time. I don't think I know how to perform first aid anymore, but I'm sure I'll be able to Google it when I get there. It's been strange adjusting to alone. I don't want to call it loneliness because sometimes it's pleasant, you know? I'll finish a book and close it, and the place will be quiet, not eerie, but comforting. I've had to learn a lot, which has made me realize how much I rely on others to assist me with tasks that I could always handle alone. I replaced a tire for the first time. It was a terrifying encounter because my tire popped on the highway, but I made it. After losing a bunch of plants, I realized that different plants take different care, but I now have a small basil plant that is thriving well. I discovered that I dislike action films. The fast pace and continual pressure do not appeal to me. I learned how to cook shrimp. Ted is allergic, so we didn't have any at home. Pro tip, remember to devein your shrimp. I also miss certain aspects of my time with Ted. I had to drive myself to the emergency room after missing a carrot with a knife, and I believe hospitals should offer valet parking. Tortilla had a health scare, and sitting alone in the waiting room was quite unpleasant. The death anniversary of a childhood buddy passed, and he was not there to comfort me. I likewise despise mopping and am forced to do it myself. That's about it. I don't think I've seen Ted since Christmas, though we do text and contact each other occasionally. We're learning to be apart without giving up all of our support at once. We're still healing. I'm still healing, but I can confidently say that I can see the bright side now, when previously it was just a matter of taking each day as it came. I am not sure if that makes sense. Ted's birthday is coming up. I don't believe I'll go see him, but I'll ask his buddies to make sure he is not alone. I've considered adopting an elderly cat for him. He's always had strong feelings for them, and I believe it would be beneficial for him, but I don't want to go too far. What do you all think? Finally, I'd want to thank you for your ongoing support and best wishes. You actually are a fantastic community that exemplifies the best of human nature. Of course, Reddit has its dark corners and unpleasant people, but the vast majority of you are such a powerful support system without even knowing me or the many others you have assisted. I'm simply thinking that maybe the internet isn't so horrible. I'll make an effort to repay and spread all of the generosity I've gotten from you all, and perhaps, one Redditor at a time, we might leave this place a little better than we found it. Right now, I believe this is as good a last update as any, a somewhat happy conclusion with a promising future. I'm not sure, maybe I'll surprise you all like Gilmore Girls and offer you a year in the life somewhere in the future, but for now, I can assure you that everything will be fine. Head pets for everyone who want them, intended for cats, but I don't discriminate by species, and my love for everyone from my repairing heart, Ellie and Tortilla. Update 6, Return of the P-Man. Hello nice individuals. How are you? Almost a year has passed, and I hope we've all gotten older and wiser. It's endearing to know that even after all this time, people are still following me and sending me encouraging messages and comments. Also, thank you to everybody who reported me to Reddit Care. I had no idea they offered that service. I hope it came from a position of care and concern. I believe the story was shared on TikTok at some point, so hello to everyone who arrived from there. At this time, I expect AOL chat groups or Yahoo Answers to appear. The new 20s are kicking my ass, and not in a particularly good way. I can't wait for this decade to end. A Redditor referred to my previous update as a holiday special, which made me laugh. I don't think they meant it kindly, but it made me laugh because I am a total sucker for the Hallmark Channel. So here I am again, following the holidays. For my enemies and those who don't want to sit through a half-hour rant, here's the TLDR. I bought a robot mop, my basil died, things began to seem normal, my ex-husband attempted suicide, and I'm now back at my parents' house. I've highlighted the bits referenced in the TLDR so you can jump to the relevant parts. But now for a more detailed account of events, which may not be in chronological order. My life-saving robot mop and my dying basil. At the recommendation of several Redditors, I purchased a steam mop. It did help at first, but I still had to go through the motions of cleaning, and the fact that the floor was still damp and my socks were wet is what concerns me about mopping. So, at the recommendation of several Redditors, I purchased a robot mop. I had a room, but I had no idea they also created mop versions. It's perfect, and I adore it. I run her while I'm out for the day, and when I return home, the floors are freshly cleaned and dried. It's the greatest feeling in the world. My small basil plant died. I believe it is my fault because I relocated it from its previous location in the kitchen, where it received more light, but it is now dead. I did create a delicious pasta salad with the rest of it, Oro with cherry tomatoes, mozzarella balls, olive oil, salt and basil. Very simple and wonderful. I was given a few little rose plants and managed to kill them all within a few months, so I gave up on living vegetation. My internal monologue ramblings are returning to some sense of normalcy. Life sucks, and then you die. One of my sisters has always been hooked to that statement, and I believe the beauty of it is that it can be interpreted in a variety of ways. She sees it as a lesson not to dwell on the negative, because you never know when you'll die. But right now I feel it a little more physically. I suppose the romanticized phrase "when it rains it pours" stems from a similar idea. I went on a date set up by a buddy of mine with his coworker, and it was awkward. I'm not sure if I've always been this awkward, if first dates are inherently awful, or if we just didn't click, but I spent the entire evening feeling fight or flight. The guy was great. Perhaps we should have done something less formal than dinner. I haven't been on a first date in years. I suppose most people currently like coffee and I should have followed suit, or maybe I wasn't prepared yet. My new, not so new job, which I obtained after everything happened, is wonderful. My supervisor no longer gives me flowers as gifts. I'm not sure if he was smart and noticed what occurred last year and took the hint, or if someone mentioned it, but now, when everyone else gets flowers, I get lamps. I know that seems strange, but I enjoy lamps and light-up items. In the last year, he has given me a cute kitten nightlight that I like, and as well as some fairy lights and one of those Himalayan rock salt lamps. He's a nice guy, and I appreciate his efforts. My co-workers are wonderful, and the work we perform is both enjoyable and rewarding, which is something I did not have before. I used to work 2 jobs, one satisfying and one to pay the bills. It's crazy to have one that does both, and it makes me feel like I wasted so much time with my prior one. So there's a silver lining to everything. Tortilla is doing well. She is now forced to eat prescription food and is really unhappy about it. Even though it's been months, winter is always difficult for her because she becomes extra fluffy, which bothers her. So it's time to do extra brushing and de-shedding. If you have long-haired pets, I recommend the Furminator, but Amazon has cheaper choices. She's getting older, so I do my best to keep her comfortable. One of my sisters got a kitten, and we look after him when she is away. Tortilla simply adores him. Matcha, the kitten, dislikes all of the grooming she gives him and pretends not to like her, but if he falls asleep, he will go cuddle with her. If she wakes up before, he'll flee. I'm rambling, perhaps because I'm not sure where to begin or what to say. It's also a little alarming because I know certain individuals are keeping an eye on me through this account. I don't mind if they do, but it still seems strange, like when you know someone is watching you from afar. I'm not sure whether that makes sense to you people. But yeah. Anyway, when I'm feeling particularly masochistic, I'll browse the comments on sites where the Pia Man saga has been discussed. Most of you on my own threads are extremely nice and helpful, but outside of my own virtual walls, individuals express harsher opinions. As previously stated, it is both masochistic and harmful, and I'm aware of this. My therapist is aware of this, but it also serves to anchor me and allow me to see things from new perspectives. For example, someone branded me insane for being so infatuated with cats. I hadn't realized it, but a large amount of my updates are about cats and their well-being. This is because I genuinely enjoy cats. That person claimed I displayed more empathy for cats than I did for Ash, my in-laws, or even Ted. And yes, you could call me sociopathic, but domesticated animals in general have little control in what happens in their life. We as pet owners, make decisions for them and strive to make the best ones we can. But in the case of Sunny, I will always feel more pity for her than for anyone else since she was helpless. There was no other choice for her, no safe haven, and no one to advocate for her. Even if you remove the sentimental aspect of my attachment to cats, it was still terrible from a humane sense, and there is a reason why animal cruelty charges were contemplated. Other responses suggested that I was over-victimizing myself, that what I went through was insignificant and that I was overly dramatic, which I may be. They claimed the genuine victims were X, Y, or Z. I believe that everyone involved in this event is a victim in some manner, but being a victim in your own story does not preclude becoming a villain in someone else's. Take my ex-Mil as an example. She has received the least amount of sympathy in what I have read, although her husband was AOS, an abusive parent and husband. I know her upbringing was less than ideal, and she has a lot of unresolved trauma from the deaths of her daughters. Does this excuse her behavior? No. Does it provide some explanation? Maybe. Does that make up for all of the harm she caused? Definitely not. Ash was a victim of an extremely brutal childhood, but part of the reason this took everyone off guard and things went downhill so quickly was that he was very well put together. Or, at the very least, he was fantastic at managing or disguising his emotions. He has an engineering degree from a reputable university, a solid employment and a fulfilling life after graduation. Everything went down with the pandemic and isolation. I'm not sure, and I've thought about it a lot, but what would have occurred if there hadn't been a pandemic? Wouldn't Ash have snapped? Could something else have prompted him? Would anyone else have unlocked the skeleton closet? Imaginary what-ifs are their own ADV. I've imagined so many various lives, with joyful, sad and tragic endings. I know it's not a good idea to focus on those, but I occasionally envy the possibilities. However, I must say that in my wildest dreams I never imagined Ted dying. First and foremost, he is not dead. He is doing fine right now. Please keep in mind that, while this is presented from my point of view, Ted was the actual person in the center of it. I was only a casualty. It took many, many therapy sessions to accept that it wasn't my fault. I was simply the unfortunate one who drew the short stick. Years of violence and dismissive behavior from their family shaped Ash into the person he is now. That would have come out somehow, regardless of my role. I'd like to think that something convinced him to see a real therapist, and that it was dealt with in a safe, healthy manner. But I suppose we will never know. The one thing I've learned to appreciate is that I was the one who broke the camel's back, not B1's daughter. Things would have been significantly different, and far more terrifying. Ted was also involved. As you may recall, I maintained contact with B6 during the divorce, but at the recommendation of many of you and other individuals in my life, I took a step back and removed myself from him. A few months later, B6 phoned me and asked whether I had heard from Ted recently, which I had not. He stated that some family matters had occurred, he did not specify what, and I did not inquire, and that several of them had attempted to contact him but had been unsuccessful. He informed me he was worried and that he was planning to visit our city to check on him and let him know if I heard anything from him. I knew Ted was keeping his family at a remove, especially B6, so it didn't surprise me that they hadn't heard from him. To be fair, Ted is unlikely to simply disregard a family email. I sent him a message informing him that B6 had contacted me looking for him, but I did not hear back from him. Ted and I had separated ourselves from each other by that point, as stated in my several updates, so his lack of response was not surprising. But he read my message. Fast forward approximately 2 weeks, and B6 tells me he's in town and wants to meet with me. I said yes because I missed him and invited him to dinner at a new restaurant that I thought he would enjoy. He responded no, only coffee. That was strange because B6 is a huge foodie who never turns down new restaurants, but I assumed he was only in town for a few days and wanted to spend more time with Ted. We met at my park, and he seemed tough. I only remember taking a step back and feeling dread, that feeling you get when you know someone is going to tell you bad news. To be honest, I expected him to tell me that Ash had returned to town, but he just seemed defeated. He told me that a few more things had come to light in the family, but I wasn't very interested, so I didn't ask for specifics. I'm sorry I can't supply more juicy gossip, which I know you enjoy. When he arrived to check on Ted, he saw him in a serious downward spiral. Ted had never been a big drinker, only socially and on rare occasions, but when B6 arrived at his house at 10 a.m. on a Saturday, he was utterly intoxicated. B6 stayed with him and sobered him up until Sunday, when he caught him up on the family situation. B6 went out to retrieve his belongings from his hotel and returned to find Ted absolutely comatose. Ted spent some time in the hospital when he called for help. I'm not sure if anything else occurred to him or if it was just the accumulation of everything that had happened over the previous 2 years catching up with him, but it appears to me that he had been on a self-destructive bender for quite some time. When I discussed it with my therapist, she said that it might make logic and help to explain the divorce. Maybe I'm simply looking for an explanation for why he divorced me after all these years, but knowing Ted the way I do, it makes sense. He was always an excellent guardian. I suppose he developed that trait early in life while defending Ash. He's the type of person that keeps an eye out for girls drinking at a pub and always stops to see whether an unaccompanied child is safe. He also has some controlling tendencies, which often cause him worry. He is an excellent planner, but he struggles when things do not go as planned. It makes him strict at times, but also highly dependable. Those are all qualities I've always admired about him. During our chats before the divorce, he repeatedly apologized for not being able to protect me and for putting me in danger. Even though I believed I'd persuaded him that it wasn't his fault, I guess he wasn't convinced. He was also coming to terms with the fact that his family was not as nice as he imagined. He recognized he had contributed to the family's dismissive behavior throughout their upbringing. Realizing how awful and horrifying his history was, as well as how wicked some of his brothers are, takes its toll on a person. He was suffering with his own trauma, intense remorse, and a sense of powerlessness. Ted ended up going to a rehab center for a while. He would not allow me visit, but he did send me emails. They are a little too personal to discuss with you, but reading them was an emotionally charged experience. The first few apologized for worrying me and assured me that he was fine. Some were rambling, and that is coming from me. Others were genuinely pretty good. It was an interesting journey to see him go from hyper-polite and apologetic to the man I fell in love with. It was also fascinating to watch him assimilate what I had been saying for years and get insight into things I had never noticed before. Overall, I believe it was cathartic for him. I think writing is the finest release, which is why I'm here. It enabled him to arrange his ideas. I'm not sure why he emails me personally rather than keeping a diary or sending emails to himself, but I'm not complaining. There was one email in which he was angry at everyone and everything. Everything went wrong, and he was frustrated. I felt quite relieved. It was fantastic to see his light returning. When he first emailed me, he suggested that I not respond to his emails and instead listen or read. If I wanted to, I could just remove them and he would have no idea. In the angry email, he addressed me by a moniker he had not used in years, since before we married. That really pissed me up. It was not something serious. He was talking about a trip we'd taken with some buddies. They ended up breaking up in the middle of it because they didn't want to return home because everything had already been paid for, but they also refused to remain with each other. As a result, we had to divide the boys and girls into groups to complete the planned tasks. He felt miserable the whole time. He responded something like, "I have not forgiven Alyssa for Venice, it was supposed to be you, so when There's nothing wrong with the pet name, but it only reminded me of everything I'd lost and all the memories. I disregarded his request and responded to his email. This resulted in increased correspondence between the two of us. He didn't take it hard when I responded, so I'm not sure if that was his purpose all along or not, but we just corresponded back and forth for a few weeks, which was pleasant. We never discussed Ash or his family when we emailed. I'm not sure if it was because it didn't come up naturally or if he was avoiding the topic, but it was good to communicate with him like we did when we first met. We used to converse using Facebook Messenger, and just writing to him reminded me of those days. It's ridiculous how much I still adore him and how much I miss him. Those foolish emails felt like getting my best buddy back. Even if he wasn't my spouse anymore. He's presently back at his place with B3. His wife and dog lived with him for a while, yay remote work, until he was well adjusted. He now takes antidepressants, has a larger support network, and is feeling much better. He stopped shutting people off while still setting healthy limits, which is fantastic. He's reconnected with B3, B4, and B6, his closest friends aside from Ash, and has lost contact with everyone else. I feel awful for his nibblings because I know he was quite attached to some of them and misses them. But yes, that is something he absolutely needed. For what it's worth, B6 has no touch with anyone. He was always distant with everyone except Ted and Ash, which I assume was because he knew. But after all, he's moving closer to B4 and B3, so there's another silver lining. I'm not clear how B3 and B4 interact with everyone else, but I know B4 is involved. He clearly understands and respects Ted's boundaries and does not share information with or about him. Ted and I have met a few times, sometimes for friends' activities, sometimes just to catch up, and I can tell he is doing well. He has regained the weight he lost, and his hair is glossy again. His freckles are no longer visible, indicating that he has spent time in the sun, which is beneficial, and his shoulders no longer slump. He returned to his job this week. He was placed on leave of absence, and I can tell it gives him a sense of purpose. He was never able to stop doing anything, so I can imagine how uncomfortable that time was for him. As a result, we visited a shelter, where he adopted an elderly cat. His name is Socks, I believe because he has white paws. He is a wonderful and affectionate cat. He's also missing many teeth. Ted has been attempting to title him Macbeth, but he does not appear to enjoy it. In Ted's defense, Socks does not respond to Macbeth, so perhaps he will succeed. Tortilla was delighted to see Ted when I visited them. She didn't particularly care for Socks, but that's because she dislikes animals larger than herself. As I previously stated, I am currently living on the East Coast, and 2022 was really difficult for us. 2 hurricanes slammed my town, and my apartment flooded during the emergency. My father regularly welcomes us to their house, so Tortilla and I were safe, but that sucked. I'm not sure if it was a message from the cosmos, divine intervention, or whatever, but the 2 pairs of shoes I preserved were wrecked. Both of them. I did everything I could to salvage them, even consulting with professionals, but they were beyond repair. I mean, it wasn't just those 2 shoes. Half of my goods had to be replaced, along with a slew of other sentimental items. But you already know about the shoes and my devotion to them, even though they were a biohazard. My poor apartment has been through a lot. The floorboards had to be removed due to water damage, and they were already rotting and molding underneath by the time we were able to enter. So it was a significant expense to correct. Unfortunately, much of my furniture and appliances, including the robot mop, had to be replaced. For the record, I did have sandbags, but it was probably too much for them. Insurance covered some of the repairs, but definitely not all. Insurance claims are terrible, but it turned out to be the greatest alternative for fixing things and selling the apartment. I'd always moaned about moving, but moving with only a few boxes was especially unpleasant. I never brought so little with me to college. So I'm now staying with my parents. It's a little frustrating, but I'm grateful to be here with them. The house feels a little lonely because the last of my sisters has recently moved away to college, so it's silent save for the cats running about. But, hey, cats are excellent company. I am in the process of closing on a new apartment in a high-rise, so hopefully this will not happen again. I'll miss my park, but the new apartment is in an excellent position, with everything close. I could also bike to work if I wanted to, but I'd need to learn how to ride first. Why don't I know how to ride a bicycle? Because my father was overprotective and worried we would die if we rode a bike. I'm not sure if I'm too old to learn to ride a bike right now, but I'm willing to damage my ego by trying training wheels. Tortilla will have plenty of bright spots in her new residence because the windows are much larger. I planned to build a catio at my previous home since I had a little terrace, but the current location has a balcony, which appears to be a little risky for a catio. So that's life right now. I've been prioritizing work and spending time with my parents. I scheduled a trip for March, and it will be my first time traveling alone. I'm a little nervous because I've never had to organize a trip on my own. Did I mention Ted is an excellent planner? I have no idea if I'm doing it correctly, but that's the goal. I've been taking classes in the language of the place I'm going, so we'll see how much I learn. I want to share something as well, which is why I ended up writing this update and using the title I chose. I didn't include it in the TLDR because I don't want the haters to read everything I write. If they don't want to, why should they? When Six called me about Ted, I was worried he was telling me that Ash had returned. As you now understand, this was not the case. When Ted sought assistance, I got a letter at my parents' home. It was a letter from Ashley. I didn't feel dread for the first time in 2 years, after the incident. I'm not sure if it's because I was receiving Ted's emails, or if I had done some wonderful healing. My therapist definitely should start charging me more. When I offered her a raise, she declined, claiming that it does not work that way. But yes, I read it. He apologized. He also admitted to several things he had done to me that I had never realized were microaggressions on his behalf. He admitted to a number of his behaviors that had always troubled me. He did not attempt to justify anything, only apologized. He revealed a couple other facts that were both surprising and unsurprising, as well as some that you guessed. It felt a little rambling and frantic, but I understand. He apologized for hurting Ted, said he knew what Ted was going through better than anybody else, and admitted that he had caused irreparable damage and would never be in Ted's life again. Even if he couldn't assist his brother after everything he had done, he knew that admitting his sins would help him make amends to me. Even if Ted had no idea, it was a little way for him to implicitly apologize to him. He stated something interesting. "I'm sorry I broke your marriage, but I don't believe I ruined your life. Ted would not have picked you unless you were resilient." He also thanked me for trying. I tried really hard at first to be friends with him, but after the occurrence, it was a no-go. He stated he had given up on people other than Ted trying for him, and he regretted never giving me a chance. He said he was envious that I could bring Ted happiness in ways he couldn't, and he hated that Ted had lost it because of him. I believe it was simply a method for him to alleviate his guilt over harming his favorite person and observing the impact it had on him while also respecting his limits. I mean, he disrespected mine, but I understand. I have not told Ted about the letter. I do not think I will either. I told B6, and while he was angry at first, he eventually understood and accepted it. He told me it was up to me whether I informed Ted or not, that he didn't think it would do much harm but wouldn't help either. So if I felt obliged to tell or show him, I would wait till he was in a better state, and then run it by his therapist, or do it in therapy. Final thoughts. Christmas has come and gone again, and this time I spent it with my family. My sisters are the finest, and they each gave me a pair of shoes to commemorate significant life events. They gave me an empty shoebox to represent the pair I'll need to purchase to begin this new journey. It was the most heartfelt gift I've ever received, and it made me cry for the majority of Christmas morning. I met Ted for New Year's. We were both invited to a mutual friend's party, and we had a wonderful time. We didn't spend the entire time together on purpose, but we did frequently find ourselves having our own talks without being impolite to others and simply laughing together. When midnight struck, I was seated in the back, away from the couples, and he sat next to me, resting his head on my shoulder. We simply remained in comfortable stillness as everyone else rang in the new year. It's such a comfort to have Ted, our friend, back. I still love him. I probably always will. I've tried distance, no contact, and sleeping with someone else to get him out of my system, but it doesn't work. I'm not sure if he's my fated soulmate, and we'll always gravitate toward each other, or if it's simply the comfort and convenience of being together for so long. But I can't help but love him. I love the man he was before and the one he is today. I adore the one he was in between, and to be honest, I'll probably love the one he'll be every day after that. I will not give up on him, even if I have to. I'd rather keep him as a friend than constantly pushing him away, especially since he makes me happy. I deserve to be happy, and he makes me happy. Is this so wrong? I know most of you keep saying it was good riddance, that he did me a favor and that we should simply stop talking. But I miss him. Maybe it makes me stupid, but well, at least I'll be stupid and content. If he asks me to take a step back, I will, but I'm content to be happy right now and worry about it later. I believe both of us deserve it. We both still have a lot of work to do and more healing is on the way. But for the time being, things are going well, which I believe we both need. I believe that all of us, including you, require good. If you've read this far, I appreciate you taking the time. I wish you all the best. May you find $20 in your pocket, may your favorite drink be available in the shop, and may your coffee be prepared to perfection. But seriously, Thank you for always allowing me to communicate about my life without being judged, with love, acceptance, and compassion. Every single one of you is incredible and kind. Please know that I admire and cherish each of you individually. Thank you for taking care of me. Love, Ellie and Tortilla.